Whoa, where's my... No. Come on. Oh, hang on 1 second, folks. Music's not playing. Should be playing. It's not playing. Don't know why. Audio's messing with me. Oh, what a joy. Let's try and fix that as fast as possible. There it goes. Come on in. Come on. You there? Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us. This is No Soundbites Allowed. I am your host, Michael Voss, Dragon of the Southern Tier, at least for now, Dragon of the Southern Tier, and I'm happy to be here with you on this Sunday, June 28th. Please excuse the fact that we're having just a couple of seconds of difficulty, because as always, you get everything set, you're doing everything, and when you go live, the system craps out on you. You gotta hate that. By the way, I thank Graham for being one of the first to comment here. Hello, Graham. Good to see that you're with us out of California. We're going to be starting up in just a moment, folks, because there is a lot to talk about. One of the nice things that I want to be mentioning is we do have an exclusive response from Representative Marc Molinaro about his controversial vote, along with 19 other Republicans, to defend Adam Schiff, somebody who has lied to the American people on national news streams, including with Rachel Maddow, and was called out for that. And yet we saw that Marc Molinaro voted for and in favor of Adam Schiff. I'm going to go over his direct response to our request for comment on that so that you can see for yourself why he did it and what he plans to do in the future. That's exclusive. No one else seems to have that information. We'll be happy to provide that to you. It's something that we do on a regular basis. Excuse me, as I said, I'm just trying to get the system to catch up to what I've been trying to set up here. We're also going to be talking about what's happening with the U.S., China, and obviously Antony Blinken, the Secretary of State. We'll be talking about what's happening in Iran. There seems to be some back-channel conversations happening with the United States that the United States wants to deny, but yet is being reported internationally. Let's also talk about what's happening here in the United States about the inflation. Let's talk about classified documents. Let's talk about everything that's on your mind. For those who have not seen the channel before, every week at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we come out to talk with you about the issues that matter. For everyone across the world is happy to call in, to text like Graham, or to call in 607-242-9247. Our phone line is on as we speak, to tell us what you think about whatever issue, whether you agree or disagree. If there's an issue you think is important that we have not covered, we want to hear your voice. We believe in the First Amendment. As long as you're respectful, we're happy to hear what you have to say about all of the issues that affect us all. So I should also do some little quick house cleaning here very quickly, which is next week I will be in New York City, and I will be doing some videos from there. It seems that I was the subject of a scam trying to advance I'm losing my house. There were some individuals who were trying to scam me to try and take my house sooner than was legally available. I've spoken with the judge about this, and we've got an extension of time, but I will be in New York next week and having some conversations about the future of this channel and my life going forward. So I just wanted to explain that to you. By the way, we have a Patreon page, just so you know. That being said, oh my God, there's just so much. The Sudan is losing its mind. I know you may not remember the Sudan. Most people in America don't think about Sudan, but there's another ethnic cleansing happening in Sudan. Africa is falling further and further from America, further and further away from democracy, more into authoritarianism, and more aligned with China. We are seeing it day by day, and it is terrifying to see this happen. In fact, you may have noticed, or you may not, that Mali, the nation of Mali, is now considering new constitutional documents, but they're not going to provide them with any freedom. That's not going to help them. We've already seen in Uganda, we've already seen throughout Africa over the last several weeks how they have continued to move further and further from democracy and from freedom. Now, people may say, but Mike, I'm in America. Or some of the audience may say, but I'm in the European Union. I'm in the United Kingdom. How does that affect me? Well, very simply, let's think of it from electric vehicles. Let's think about it from solar panels, from wind panels. Let's think about the entire green movement, the entire climate change movement. What happens in Africa directly affects the rest of the world. The raw resources that are coming from Africa are directly affecting the energy policies of the world, especially as we are told by more and more nations, Western nations, that we need to become more clean energy, more green energy, move away from oil. Then we are dependent on Africa. And all of the deals dealing with the lithium and heavy metals that we need for those solar panels, for those wind farms, for the hydroelectric, for the electric vehicles, that's all coming out of Africa. And China has agreements with all of these nations. Africa has spent decades building up their relationship. And now, as we see South Africa move further and further away from the United States, aligning themselves with China, as we see France trying to convince the European Union to side with France and move further and further away from America, this is a direct impact to us because we are now an energy-dependent nation. We're competing with our allies and our friends in Europe, around the world, for this very same oil that they need. I know there was a recent report that came out and said that by 2028, there will be no more oil in the world. We've heard this many, many times. But let's think about that. If they are correct, if finally, after my entire life, 5 decades of telling us that we're about to run out of oil, if in fact we do run out of oil in 2028, there isn't enough energy in the world. Green energy is not enough. We need nuclear. But we're not going to have nuclear. We've seen in Germany, they shut down all of their nuclear power plants. France has pulled back on their nuclear power plants. The United States, you can't build a new nuclear power plant, which means we have to rely on solar and wind and the green movement, which means Africa becomes prominent. They are the key, and China controls that key. They have it locked down. So what does that mean for the rest of the world? Have we even considered that? At the same time that we're seeing nations like in Mali, like in Uganda, that we are seeing all, like the Sudan, where we are seeing that there is over 300 that have been identified so far as being war-wounded Sudanese, that they are escaping into Chad. They are escaping Sudan right now. It is another ethnic cleansing there. We've seen this. The last time they had this, it lasted for 20 years, actually more than 20 years. Under the Obama administration, there was a genocide happening around the world in Africa that he ignored. because he's so concerned about black and brown people, as we were told over and over again. He was so concerned about Africa and the trade and was looking forward to the future of America, so much so that he wanted to necessarily skyrocket our energy costs. We have to think about this. Now, I don't believe that we'll run out of oil in 2028. It seems unlikely to me, but you may think I'm wrong. And you may say, I know there are people who say peak oil, that we've already gone past the peak, that all of the oil reserves in the world are shrinking and will be gone within my lifetime, in the next 20 years or less. That's possible. But if that's the case, do you really think we're ready for that? We're still trying to deal with the fact that Nord Stream 2 is cutting off natural gas to Germany. We have progressives throughout the United States saying, don't use natural gas. The only resource, if we run out of oil, natural gas is the next thing we have to go to. Until we can get oil, until we can get, solar and wind and geothermal and hydroelectric, until we can make those actually functional, we have to have natural gas. It's just a fact. The energy is necessary now. That would be good for the United States. We have over 100 years of natural gas reserves that we know of, that we are able to tap into through fracking. And that would allow America to not only to maintain the quality of life, but to exceed it, to be able to help our allies in Germany, in the United Kingdom, around the world, to be able to maintain their quality of life. But it seems the progressives don't want you to have a quality of life. They want to lower that quality up. It's part of their plan for equity, that we must bring down the United States. We must bring down the first world nations of the world to meet up with the third world nations of the world. That they're going to raise them up by bringing us all down. Because you can't make Mali into France. It's not going to happen. You're not going to change Sudan and suddenly it's going to become Mexico. It's not going to happen. What you have to do is you have to knock down the United States. You have to knock down the United Kingdom. You have to wreck their quality of life so that they're equal to the impoverished nations of the rest of the world. That's what equity ultimately brings you to. That's what socialism ultimately brings you to. On a parity, not by lifting everyone up, but bringing down the best lower. That's what actually happens, and we have seen this over and over again. It is historical. We have seen this. And you have to think about this. No one is talking about what's happening in Sudan. Why is it so hard in the United States to even know that in Sudan there is yet another ethnic cleansing that most people didn't even know that happened the first time? Why don't we know that the people of the Sudan are once again trying to escape their nation, to escape the genocide that is happening there? Because there's 15,000 Americans that are running and fleeing with these people. That's why. Do you remember? Because we do. The Biden-Harris administration abandoned 15,000 Americans this year in the Sudan. They got out 300 Americans after a week of a ceasefire. When a ceasefire where Britain got out 2,200 of their citizens, where India got out 2,400 of their citizens, the United States, under Joe Biden, was able to get 300 Americans out. There are 15,000 people running right now, terrified of the ethnic cleansing, the civil war in the Sudan. Those are people who may be your brothers, your cousins, your sisters, your moms, your dads. They are dying or running in fear of dying, and the United States has just said goodbye. We're treating them the same way we treated the Americans, 5,000 Americans in Afghanistan today, the 10,000 Americans in the Ukraine today, the children of these Americans that have been abandoned by the Biden-Harris administration, by progressives that threw them away because it's not advantageous to the next election. And I dare any elected official in the Biden-Harris administration, any Democrat in America in an elected office to actually dispute this. We can go over the numbers and they are clear. About 10,000 Americans a year are thrown away by the Biden-Harris administration so far. Any elected official in America can call in to 607-242-9247 at any point. I will give you as much time as you need to explain to me why that I'm wrong. Please, let's go over the data. I dare you. And by the way, for the Republicans out there, we need to do more about this. We need to get these Americans home. Yes, we don't control the House. We don't control the White House, but we need to do something to get these Americans home. They have been gone too long. They have been forgotten too much. And the rest of the world is seeing that as a weakness, which is why we are seeing China actively state that they are going to take over Taiwan. It is why we are seeing tensions in the Middle East with Iran as they supply drones and rockets to Russia in the Ukraine region, how they are making moves around the world, improving or increasing the net global terrorism in the world. We are seeing these things happen, and you know what? We need to do something about this. Now, I know most people in America don't like to look at the international. We always start this program talking about the international, and then we move on to the U.S. But these are important issues because they are connected. If you think energy prices are high today, wait until you see what's going to happen. Hello, Dow. Dow's with us now, and Dow says, there was a report this morning that the government is quietly considering an evacuation plan for Taiwan. It sounds kind of like the initial plans in December of 2021 by Joe Biden to appease Russia by forcing the Ukraine to give up its land. Remember when we reported that on this channel? And so it's the same kind of idea where the United States is saying, oh, we'll just give up Taiwan. We'll just help some of the people in Taiwan, like we did in Hong Kong. We'll let some of them escape to the United States and give up the homeland, the territory, the infrastructure, and let the Chinese take it over. It is a horrible plan. And am I surprised, Dow, that the United States government, is anyone surprised that the Biden-Harris administration would say, oh, just run away. Just forget about your infrastructure, your homeland, your businesses. Just forget everything. Just leave. Or we'll forget about you instead. Hello, Anya. Good to see that you're with us. Thank you for joining again. So I think this is important because, I mean, again, this is connected to everything. It's about the future of our energy. Whether or not you believe in climate change, it doesn't matter. We're talking about what's going to affect your cost of living. We're talking about the quality of life that you're having and how it's impacting everyone else. It's about the thousands, the tens of thousands of Americans that have been abandoned and lost around the world. If we don't talk about these things, it will happen to you next, whether you're over in Sweden or in India, in Italy or in Germany, if you're in our audience in the United Kingdom or Peru or Canada, it's going to happen to you. Dow says, of course, historically, we've seen that essentially the administrations in general have no set plan or policy. Well, the Biden administration has been horrendous about this. And we have seen they have no international policy. I dare anyone, any Biden supporter, please tell me, what is the Biden doctrine about anything, domestic or international? Because I don't know what it is, other than win the next election. I know what he's promised us that we're going to have our southern border secure. That doesn't happen. He tells us we're going to be energy independent. We're not. He tells us that it's not a big deal because prices aren't rising, and they are. That's this, but because if you're abroad, they're all for the individual to be independent of the government and solve their own problems, right? Not just in their own backyard. Oh yeah, it's American independence. You'll just figure a way to get home. I mean, that's what he told to the Americans in the Ukraine. He did so on NBC News with Lester Holt. He did it again less publicly to those in the Sudan. Just said, you'll figure it out. Meanwhile, there's a genocide that's going on. A genocide. We have seen this. If you think it's only 300 people who have been, who are running to Chad, you have not watched the history of what happens in the Sudan, what's happened in Africa, as the people are losing more and more of their freedoms, and it is becoming more and more authoritarian and more aligned with China. This is a scary thing. This is a trend of the world as the world continues to militarize, which we have talked about on this channel for many weeks. And when I say this, I want you to understand that this is about climate change as much as it is about energy, as much as it is about security, as much as it is about abandoning American citizens. We know that the UN, the climate change talks, the COP28, COP27, they're not really effective. In fact, they're doing a horrible job. Come on in. Thank you. They're doing a horrible job of being able to even talk about climate change. I mean, let's think about it. What are we seeing? We're just finding out. Just now, it's been over a year, and we're just finding out that the climate talks, well, they were about bullying and harassment. They were about abusing women. This is coming from, not me, but the Financial Times. As reported, as you can see here, on June 17th, yesterday, female delegates at the UN climate talks alleged they were bullied and abused and sexually harassed by the male negotiators. What is the climate change conference all about? It's about trying to hook up. That's essentially it. They're trying to hook up with each other. They're not worried about green energy, about making the climate better. They're trying to have a party overseas, having a great old time based on the government paying them for this trip, and they're trying to hook up with each other. And you didn't hear about this. Notice how they were all silent. There was 24 countries that were involved. Their representatives of 24 countries were so busy trying to hook up, they didn't care whether or not the climate was going to be better or not. It makes you wonder, did they care, or does any of them actually care whether or not it's going to be better? I don't think so. But we do know that Africa is going to be in control of this. Africa is the one we have to pay attention to. Hello user has been banned. I'm glad that you're here with us as well. Dow mentions we cannot be energy independent using the promoted tech of wind and solar because the tech depends on foreign raw materials and are not nearly efficient enough to maintain a grid. Well, the first problem with, if we're talking about climate change, it's one of the things climate activists hate to talk about. The fact that we don't have an energy grid that can handle anything. We need to replace that, and that costs $7 trillion, which we don't spend. As much as you hear Biden, you've heard Obama, you hear all the politicians talk about infrastructure, the fact is that we're spending $100 billion in Joe Biden's infrastructure deal. He spent $100 billion on the energy grid, the United States electric grid, which requires at least $1 trillion to be upkept. He's spending $1 billion, and he's spending $400 billion on education. Think about that. The infrastructure bill is about education, not infrastructure. And it's going to cost us $7 trillion to fix that. So even if we could get the energy, which we can't produce it, not without oil, and not without natural gas, then the energy grid can't handle it. That's why California keeps having brownouts, not only because of the amount of demand, but the grid can't handle it, and you can't replace the grid because the very same activists that are saying we need to switch to wind and solar are the very same ones that say you can't build the power lines through where the power lines are. This is the nature of the problem and how insidious it is. We have allowed it because of our lack of knowledge. We have allowed the system to become convoluted, to be bogged down, where the very people who are asking for change are the very same people who are telling us we can't change. It is insane. And it's all because of a lack of actual information, which we're trying to provide to you. And we know that these leaders, many of them, their primary focus isn't on helping you. This is, again, from the Financial Times yesterday. They're focused on having a party paid for by you. That's their primary focus, not on trying to fix the problem they tell you is a problem. And definitely not, and they definitely don't want you to think, well, why don't we just use nuclear? It is the most safe and it is the most cost effective per kilowatt of any energy source in the world known to mankind. And the answer is, no, we can't do that. It is cleaner than solar. It is cleaner than wind. It is cleaner than geothermal or hydrothermal. It is the cleanest, most efficient energy source we can have. And we hear the climate activists go, no, you just can't do that. They don't ever tell you why. They just say, no, we can't use nuclear. Why not? It's cleaner than solar. It's cleaner than wind. And we wouldn't be dependent on another nation. Think about it. Imagine if China, who has all the trade agreements, is upset with the United States because they want to invade Taiwan. All they have to do, if we're moving to wind and solar, is to tell Africa, don't ship us the lithium, don't ship out the heavy metals. Same problem with America being dependent on China for making 40% of all of our goods, our consumer goods. If they're angry with us, they just slow down or stop the production. They just stop all of the sea containers and watch us flounder. This is the honesty that we need to have in our conversations today. We need to actually think about this because these are real world consequences. It is almost insane to think that we may be going to war in 2027, 2028 with the very people who provide us the goods we need to live and to turn on our lights. User has been banned says, the activists don't even know what they're talking about. They're repeating talking points based on NBC updates. Well, it's true. If you actually look into the data about all of these things, you can only find out the truth. If you look at Marc, I forget his name, Marc, the green energy czar under the Obama administration, he is an advocate for nuclear power. Not green and not solar, not wind, not geothermal. Obama's pick has done TED Talks discussing, and we have covered this on this channel before. He's done TED Talks telling you that the answer isn't green energy, it's nuclear power. But you see that the news media does not want to have that conversation. They do not want you to talk about it, just like they don't want you to realize that the climate change talks are about hooking up and having a party, and they don't want you to have a conversation about the fact that the Sudan is in the middle of, or the start of another ethnic cleansing while 15,000 Americans are in harm's way again. Not for the first time, not for the second time. This is the third time in consecutive years that the Biden-Harris administration has left Americans in harm's way, in the thousands. May not be a pleasant thing for some people to think about, to realize that their vote has enabled the potential death of thousands of Americans, but that's the reality. And now we're going to 2024. Let me look at this. There's something else to talk about here. See, what user has been banned says the Voyager probes run on nuclear, still going on the fuel they were sent with. Of course they are, because it makes sense. Because the NASA scientists weren't thinking about politics. They weren't thinking about their partisan preferences. They were thinking about what was efficient, what actually worked. That's why they did that. But let's think about this. Right now, today, and again, we're covering the international to get to the U.S., but right now, everyone's talking about the fact that Blinken is in China. Antony Blinken, the Secretary of State for the Biden-Harris administration, is talking in Beijing. He's talking with China right now. Oh my God, what's going to happen there? Nothing. Nothing's going to happen there. Because at the very same time, we are hearing that the State Department and the Biden-Harris administration, through back channels, is talking to Iran, and they are trying to convince Iran to go forward with the Iran nuclear deal. Remember, it was a week ago that Iran, the Ayatollah of Iran, came out and said, hey, that nuclear deal is a great idea. Let's do that. By the way, we're going to kill America. This is what the Ayatollah of Iran said. Let's kill America, but by the way, it's a great nuclear deal. Give us the money so that we can increase global terrorism. Now, we have seen that as of the 16th, as people were hearing about these back channel conversations, well, the State Department declined. They said with regard to Iran, some of the reports that we've seen about an agreement on nuclear matters, for that matter on detainees, are simply not accurate and not true. I want you to think about this. When the government comes out, when the United States government in particular comes out with a statement, you have to listen to what they are saying very clearly. People, the international news media are saying there are back channel discussions that the deal that we've been told on and off for the last 3 years is dead is still going on, that they are still negotiating, which is why Iran last week came out and said that they are in favor of the deal and that they will approve the deal because the Biden-Harris administration needs a win, because the Biden-Harris administration wants to protect the Obama legacy. So when Antony Blinken says to the international media, some of the reports, not that the deal is dead, not that they're not having the conversation, not that there isn't, that they, remember, the same State Department, Antony Blinken said, we're not going to deal with Iran as they abuse women while schoolgirls are being poisoned throughout Iran. Hundreds of schoolgirls are being poisoned because they dare to read and write and possibly dream of driving a car or maybe working for a living. That's Iran. That was the Biden-Harris administration over the last 3 months. And yet, we see that same administration saying that some reports about the agreement. In other words, there are some reports about the agreement on the Iran nuclear deal are accurate. That there are discussions about detainees in Iran, U.S. detainees, individuals held against their will illegally, are true. He didn't say nothing is true, that this isn't happening, that that's just made up. He didn't deny this. He said some reports, which means that some of the reporting, we don't know which ones, are accurate. That the deal, in some way, shape, or form, is being negotiated behind the scenes, even as we speak. Even as the State Department and Joe Biden have told us we won't deal with Iran while they abuse women and they deny them the right to read and write. Even as Iran stones women to death for daring to show their hair, even as Iran violates women's rights according to the UN Charter, even as schoolgirls are being poisoned. Because Antony Blinken is smart enough to know exactly what he said. He didn't say the deal was dead. He said that in the past. We have seen that in January. He was saying, the deal's dead. We can't go forward. There's no agreement whatsoever. And today he's saying some of the reports might be true. Again, We just have to understand what they're saying. They're telling us the news media isn't focusing on it. He didn't say no. He said, that guy got it wrong, but the other ones got it right. The conversation is happening. We want this because Joe Biden needs a win. He needs to show that he is strong against Iran, against North Korea, against China, against Russia. He needs to show strength so he can win the 2024 election because 58% of Democrats do not want him in the race. They do not want him as president. They do not want to see him win in 2024. That's according to the left. That's not my understanding. That's the polling from the left. That's Democrats responding to polls about Democrats' views about the Biden-Harris administration. He needs a victory, especially since he is considered so weak that he has abandoned 30,000 Americans around the world so far. And we have no reason to believe that he won't abandon more Americans in the future. And as Dow has said, and he is considering abandoning Taiwan, our allies, which is the thing that everyone was afraid of. When we abandoned 30,000 Americans, every ally said, but America won't stand by me. If they won't stand by their people, they won't stand by me. And now we hear that they're saying to the people of Taiwan, just run away? Isn't that exactly what every ally, why Japan is building its military, why the world is militarizing? Isn't that why Macron in France has no confidence and is looking to China? Meanwhile, they want everyone to talk about what's happening in Taiwan. They want you to talk about what's happening with the United Kingdom, with China, and the anti-Blinken speaking with China. Dow says the current administration expands its duty to retreat policy. Yeah. That is what's happening. But think about it. Everyone wants to talk about what's happening in Taiwan. By the way, Taiwan right now is working with the United Kingdom, not the United States, with the United Kingdom to provide satellite coverage of the entire island. That's interesting. Why isn't the United States doing this? We are supposed to be the big ally of Southeast Asia. We're supposed to be the ones who are protecting. We have a treaty that absolutely obligates us to protect Japan. We have bases in relationship in South Korea and Taiwan. We have publicly been making illusions that we would protect Taiwan. Then why is it that the United Kingdom is providing them with satellites, not the United States? At the same time that Antony Blinken is in China talking about Taiwan in the future of the world, talking about the potential of China invading in 2027 or 2028. Even as the United States military is shrinking, even as we are cutting our Navy almost in half, as China is doubling its Navy. These are the realities. This is all under international politics that the mainstream news media, CNN, MSNBC, ABC, they do not want to think about. They do not want to talk about this, even as the rest of the world are looking at these pieces and saying, what's going on? You need to think about this, especially if you're considering the 2024 election. Who do you want in charge of these things that are interconnected, that are having an impact on the United States, on our economy and our freedom, and therefore affecting the rest of the world? Because if the United States isn't the beacon of hope and freedom that we have been for the last 200 plus years, 250 years, there is no one to replace us. There is no one else who stands for freedom as we do. It doesn't exist. It all goes away. Which I think is important to understand. So I want to emphasize these things, and I understand that we are being suppressed by most of the news media right now because they do not want you to have these conversations. They do not want you to think about this. They want you simply to obey. They want you to just be this is no Soundbites Allowed person that does nothing. What? Sorry, I'm checking my Rumble connection, and it looks like Rumble is not live. Oh, yes, it is. Oh, it is. Okay. So, sorry, I was just checking on Rumble. So this is important. And these are the critical things that are affecting us, folks. You know, I think it's really important because think about Taiwan. If you don't want to think about the freedom, well, think about the cost of our computers. Think about the cost of, this is from the Taiwanese news, okay? Taiwan's top research body eyes further collaboration with the United Kingdom on semiconductors, not the United States, the United Kingdom. That they are working more and more with our allies, but not with us. Now, I understand the United States says they're going to try and build up their own semiconductor competition with the rest of the world, which would be great. I know in New York State, upstate New York, Micron is building a factory that will be obsolete by the day it is finished. That requires $100 billion of upkeep, $100 million of upkeep a year, every year, not just the one time, but every single year, just to keep up with what Taiwan is doing right now. Because that's how much they spend on their upkeep, on their competition, their competitive edge when it comes to semiconductors. And now they are sharing that competitive edge. They are sharing those advancements, not with the United States, but with the United Kingdom. Again, we are seeing a distancing. We are seeing countries fail to have faith and confidence and do not believe in a future with a strong United States, a United States that leads the world. They are looking for everyone else except the Biden-Harris administration. This is why we have to look at the international news, because that is giving us the indication of what the rest of the world is thinking about. To get a good understanding, even as we are being told some information on one side by the Biden-Harris administration, as we are being told one thing by NBC, CNN, by the news media, we're seeing a very different answer around the rest of the world that doesn't match that, because they're not locked in to this political messaging. Because the rest of the world isn't trying to root for Joe Biden to win the 2024 election. They just want someone who's going to be good, someone who's going to be a strong leader. And Biden isn't it. But I mean, when you look at the news media, everything we've talked about, that's coming from international news. The U.S. news, most of our allies, what are they talking about? Well, we're talking, the United States is talking with China. No kidding, we're constantly talking with them. Does this mean that China is now going to increase the amount of goods that it's producing for the United States? Does it mean that they're going to give up on invading Taiwan? That they're going to stop supporting Russia and Iran? Absolutely not. This is a farce. This isn't going to change anything. China has spent years telling us very clearly, since the day that Joe Biden got in, they have been telling us with absolute clarity that the progressive movement of the United States is a failure and they do not respect it. The very first meeting they had with the United States under the Biden-Harris administration, China lectured the United States about civil rights. That was the first conversation. And they told us then, you're a paper tiger and you don't get to dictate to the rest of the world. Those were the words of China to the Biden-Harris administration. It has never improved. And now we're suddenly supposed to think everything's going to be different now. No, it's not. They're lying to you. Because China hasn't stopped saying that they're going to invade Taiwan by force. Because China hasn't stopped supporting Russia. Because China is continuing to make deals with Iran, and North Korea continues to fire missiles in the dozens, if not hundreds. I know, but they want you to think, Juneteenth. The big deal is 20 people got shot during Juneteenth. 20 people get shot at Juneteenth every June. I know it wasn't in Chicago, it wasn't in Detroit, it wasn't in Baltimore, so it's a problem. It's not where it always happens, it's in a different place. But every time we have the Juneteenth celebrations across the country, there are a number of mass shootings, and almost always they are related to gang violence. Not a new thing. So that's the distraction. They're going to say, well, it's because of guns. What about every other weekend throughout the month of June and July and August? Because these aren't new numbers. These aren't numbers that you're never going to see. But by the way, this is right around Chicago. This is happening in Illinois. And if you think 20 people being shot in a weekend, one of them being fatal, is a big number, wait until next week. You'll see even more people shot in Chicago, and you'll see even more of them die. That is a fact. Same thing with Detroit, same thing with Baltimore. This isn't shocking news. We know this. It happens all the time. It happens every single year. But you are looking at this, and CNN, they're out there trying to make you think this is almost, oh my God, this is so unusual. This has never happened before. It happens every summer. Every summer and every Juneteenth. It's not unique. But they want you to be afraid. They want you to obey. They want you to comply. You're not supposed to remember what happened last year or the year before that. You're not supposed to think about what's happening overseas. You're not supposed to think about how these things are going to set up the dominoes that affect your life, not just for the next election, but for the next 10 or 20 years, which is why we want to talk to you about it. User has been banned says, just remember, Obama's farewell to the UN. We must give up some freedoms to the UN agenda. Keyword some. Well, that's kind of like what we're hearing from Antony Blinken in talking about the Iran nuclear deal. Some of the reports are incorrect, and some of them are absolutely correct. Some of this is exactly what we are expected to see. That we are seeing Iran continue to increase the net global terror in the world. See, the problem is that if we have the Iran nuclear deal, that means that there will be more global terror in the world. I say that not because I'm some kind of genius. I'm not saying that because I'm smarter than anyone. It's because that's exactly what happened in 2016. That's exactly what was predicted by then Secretary of State John Kerry. That is the history. That is the fact. We know that the United States was indirectly funding global terror through the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, which is Iran, and they funneled money right into it. We know that Iran has said they want death to America. That has not changed. Hang on a second. Got it. I think we got a message coming through. Oh, okay. The AFRTC is mentioning that they have a picnic that's coming. They have a picnic that's coming up recently. The Americans for the Restoration of the Constitution will have a picnic coming up on June 19th, tomorrow. And so they just wanted to notify me about that. I wanted to make sure I let you know about it as well. These are important things. So when we don't talk about what's happening on the rest of the world, and we turn a blind eye, when we do what Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has suggested, sticking our heads in the sand and just becoming isolationists, when we look at what Marianne Williamson is saying and just say, well, we're going to have a Department of Peace. We're just going to sing Kumbaya holding a crystal and trying to hug everyone. It's not going to work, folks. It's just not going to work. And the Republicans have a long road to go. I know the mayor of, what's his name? Suarez has just jumped. Oh, mayor of Miami. The mayor of Miami has jumped into the Republican race. So that's filling up. And they like to say, oh my God, there's a crowded race of all these Republicans that are running for the presidency. There's no less people in the Democrat race going for the Democrat nomination with Joe Biden sitting in office, which is kind of funny. Normally, when you have a president in office, the party that controls that president, they usually don't have any significant push to try and replace them. But Democrats have almost as many candidates as Republicans do. It tells you how much confidence they have in the Biden-Harris administration and how well perceived the Biden-Harris administration is by the rest of the nation as well as the rest of the world. Everyone is looking at the loss of stability, the destabilization of the world, and they are saying Biden-Harris doesn't ever turn into more peace, more freedom, a better America. It just doesn't happen. So that's why we're seeing this. I know, and we're supposed to think about what's happening in the Ukraine, kind of like what we see here. But everything we hear about the Ukraine, every conversation, every email, every news article has been framed around the idea that the Ukraine is absolutely winning. And we have had that messaging, that propaganda from the moment that the war started. Ukraine is winning. They're going to defeat Russia. This is a war that will last 30 days, a war that will last 3 months. It will last 6 months. It's going to be over in a year. This is a war that's been going on for a decade, since 2013, and will likely continue in some form until 2033. This is Afghanistan. This is Vietnam. This is Korea all over again. Not just for the Ukrainians and the Russians, but also for the United States. Because now, as we have seen our Bradley fighting vehicles destroyed, when we have seen the Leopard 2 tanks from Germany utterly destroyed, when we are watching that the battle is going on, and now we have Biden saying there is an unlimited supply. The United States will replace all the Bradley fighting vehicles. We're just going to send more. Doesn't matter how many get blown up. Doesn't matter that over 5% of all the tanks and armored vehicles we have sent to the Ukraine have been destroyed because they don't have the training, they don't have the expertise, they don't have the knowledge to be able to maintain these vehicles, so they're being blown out of the sky. That's not negative towards the Ukrainian people. They don't have the time to figure it all out. But the fact is, the answer is, we will just continue to fund war forever. Hal has a comment. Hal says, who is declared as a Democrat other than Williamson and Kennedy? Actually, there was a couple of people, minor people. Let me see. There is Joe Biden, right? Oh, yes, that's right. Well, going by, this is coming from The Guardian. Going by The Guardian, where's this? June 17th, yesterday. According to The Guardian, yesterday, There is Biden, Kennedy, Williamson, Cornel West. There is another individual. Cornel West is, of course, also Democratic. He's a progressive, as are Marianne Williamson, as are Robert F. Kennedy. But we're talking about so far 4, and I believe there's a 5th individual that just came out within the last week on the Democrat side, which is about, there's 6, 7 actual Republicans. It's very similar. So, again, I think that answers that, how it's a lack of confidence. It is the fact, and we may see Governor Gavin Newsom of California. He has been positioning himself, traveling around the nation, about to announce, we believe, for the candidacy, one of the strongest counter candidates. He's stronger than Marianne Williamson. He's stronger than Robert F. Kennedy Jr. He's stronger than Cornel West. So, yeah, I'm counting Newsom as well. That's huge. There really aren't 11 Republicans, and there are more than 3 Democrats, including Biden. But the fact is, they're competing against Biden. He's already sitting in office. Historically, you wouldn't see this. Again, it's a lack of confidence. And you don't have to believe me, Hal. You know what? Look at the polling. 58% of Democrats don't want Biden to run. It is a lack of confidence. Whether there's one additional candidate in the Democrats or if there's 15, there's a lack of confidence. And the news media is trying to make him seem more credible and more confident, as he is being the biggest warmonger that we have seen in quite some time. He's not talking about peace. He's not trying to make peace deals in the Ukraine with Russia and China. No, he's out there trying to actively win the war. He is fighting an economic proxy war with unlimited tanks, and now talking about F-16s. He's bringing in more and more of U.S. equipment, which will require U.S. forces to actually operate, to repair, to train in the Ukraine. It is coming. So this is important to understand. And I think it's very important to understand as we look at the economy of the United States. Because it's not just that we're being misled when it comes to what's happening with Ukraine and the position on the Ukraine, which is unlimited warfare. We are paying for the Ukraine to exist. We spend over 70% of the GDP of the Ukraine is provided by the United States. We've given them over $120 billion. Their GDP is 150, 160 per year. We're paying for that country to exist. And we're giving them weapons after weapon after weapon, training and supplies, and preparing to send in NATO troops, which are 80% U.S. troops. And we're being told that's a great thing. And by the way, the United States is doing fantastic. We can afford all of this because everything is going great in our economy. Remember, headline inflation is down. Why did they say headline inflation? CNN and some of the others. Why did they talk about inflation is down, inflation is lower? Okay, food inflation is up. Energy, if you're looking at electricity, correction, here it is. Electricity is up. We have shelter is up. And this is from the peaks. In fact, if we actually went to the charts, this is the inflation, and I want to show you. This is from the St. Louis Fed. So this is from the first month of Joe Biden, from February 1st to today. And I want you to see that chart. Hang on. They're telling you that inflation is fantastic. There is no problem. Inflation isn't real. It's not really happening. Except if you go to the actual charts and you look at this, Inflation is up over 15% under the Biden administration. Look at this straight line up. If you want to go back and say, well, Mike, that happened under every president. Okay, let's go back to 2008. Matter of fact, 2009, under the Obama administration. Just to be fair. And we're looking at from, again, same month, the Obama administration. This is the Obama administration during a recession and after the recession. And inflation did increase. And it did increase under the President Trump as well. And then it skyrocketed under Biden. Skyrocketed. Not only did it initially go up, but as his plans, his economic plans came in one after the other, it skyrocketed worse. And it's not slowing down. Meanwhile, you have the American news media. You have CNN, NBC, ABC, New York Times. You have the White House telling you that everything's fine, everything's doing fantastic, and inflation is down. Headline inflation. Inflation, the way that they want to count it, the way that it looks most favorable to them. But when you go to the grocery store, when you pay your bills, you tell me, when you have to pay, how much are you paying now to go to McDonald's to get a meal for $5? Is it $30? Is it $40? Are you spending $30, $40, $50 for having a Domino's pizza delivered to your house? And that's not inflationary? So they want you to understand, they want to frame these things very specifically so that you have a certain view. Everything is going great. Ukraine is beating Russia, except they're not. They're not beating Russia. This war isn't close to being over. And we are making sure that it will continue at least through the 2024 election, that they're going to continue to fight for a decade. Because it's good for politics. It's good for the power of the Democratic Party. And the U.S. economy is going to be told to you as being perfect. It has been fine. We have been saying since February 17th of 2021 that the economy is in danger and is failing. We have been correct in that prediction, and we continue to see this recession, and we are in a recession that started in the summer of 2022, that it will continue until 2025. We have been right on this, and we continue to be. You are going to see more inflation. We know that there will be 8% more inflation because the debt ceiling was increased by 7%, and therefore we're spending more money. Spending money we don't have. What's one of the biggest keys to inflation? Spending money we don't have. They have guaranteed and locked in about 7% of inflation by the January of 2025, just to get through the election. As they tell you, it's all okay. Everything is fine. Jason says, eat eggs. Well, yes, eggs have gone down, but again, that's temporary because supply and demand. The price of eggs went up 580%. No one could afford it. The price dropped down. Now eggs are affordable again. But that price will go back up over time because, again, once you say, okay, eggs have gone from $5 to $1, I'll buy them at $1. When they go back to $5, you're going to get out of it again. Hal says, you need to level up your restaurant choices from McDonald's and Domino's. I don't go on any of them. Actually, I cook my own food. And I recommend other people, cook your own food. I don't order from any of these places. Why? One, it's mostly because it's too expensive. I think it's ridiculously overpriced. I remember being able to get food, $5 would actually get you a decent meal. Today, $5 gets you what? One burger, maybe? It's ridiculous. I don't buy any of that. I can cook, and I am a better cook than any of those places. I can make the food in about the same time as they can actually serve it to me. It's not worth it. So, yeah, I do eat eggs when they're affordable. And I don't go to McDonald's, but I do know what the prices are. So how I don't know, that almost feels like a personal dig, but but that doesn't take away. And here's the thing, Dow, how you're saying level up your restaurant choices, but am I wrong? Is McDonald's now not affordable? Is Wendy's? Is Burger King? Look at Domino's. Look at whatever fast food that you want to. And can you honestly tell me that it hasn't been affected by inflation? That it's no longer fast, affordable food? I don't care which chain you want to point at. It's the same scenario. And it shows that there is inflation, and that inflation isn't stopping, and that the economy isn't good. If you're making $15 an hour, can you really spend $50 just to get yourself a meal at lunch from McDonald's or Wendy's or Burger King? Is that cost effective? Now, it's really interesting when we consider these things. And again, I'm not upset with how, but I want to make sure people understand this, because the distraction is, oh my God, don't worry. You just have to look at it from the government's point of view. The government's telling you everything is okay. But when we really are honest with each other, like CNBC, what did they say? Inflation rose at a 4% annual rate in May, the lowest. It was increasing inflation. Oh, okay. By the way, Hal said, no, it was lighthearted, and wasn't meant serious. But cool. Thank you, Hal. I misunderstood you, and I apologize because I misunderstood. There's no context in a text message, so I couldn't see that, and I know I take things very seriously while I do the show, so I miss some of the jokes. I can't hear the inflection there, and that's my error. I apologize for that. But we're looking at this, and they're trying to tell us that inflation cooled to 4%, which is huge. It was an increase. That's what NBC, inflation cooled to 4%, making you think that everything is better. No, it's worse. U.S. inflation may have eased in May. It didn't ease in May. It isn't better off. YouTube, May inflation report numbers are released. Inflation of 6.1% expected in May of 2020. I don't know who had that expectation. So, when you're looking at the major news media, especially as Google is presenting only those voices to you, what did they say? Oh, no, inflation isn't that bad. It's okay. Things are doing all right. You just don't understand. They're trying to make you think that it's better than it is. But it isn't. We are in a cycle, a vortex of problems that are emanating from bad choices because there is no plan for the economy. There is no plan for the United States. Dow says that grain futures are predicting constrictions on grains and grain products from Eastern Europe, but prices could be lower if Brazil has a good growing season and if Eastern Europe settles down. Well, the grain futures are going to continue to be up because we are in a global food crisis. As we have reported on this channel throughout all of 2022 and continuing throughout this year, we are 30% down. There is 30% less food in the world today than there was in 2019. And that's because one of the bread boxes of the world, the Ukraine, is in the middle of a war. So they're not producing as much grain, nor is as much grain getting shipped out of the Ukraine into the global market, in particular into Africa. In addition, Ukraine handles the majority or a large portion of the global fertilizer trade. And without that trade, there is less crops that are being grown around the rest of the world. So as long as Ukraine is fighting with Russia, and this is one of the reasons why Russia is in this war, is because of the fertilizer, the uranium, and the food, the actual crops, the wheat, because they have those things. That's why Russia is invading in the first place. So as long as they are fighting over this, there is 30% less food in the world, which is why we have seen nations throughout Africa in particular that are having famines as we speak, and the price of food has helped to skyrocket around the world. Add to that the energy costs, and again, it skyrockets across the world. So the futures would like to tell you that, well, this is going to be okay, that they have a solution for this, that, maybe it'll be Brazil that will fix this. No, they won't. They won't. They don't have enough fertilizer, and they're not big enough on growing the crops. Neither is the United States. We're still going to be short. We're still going to be short about 30% next year, just like we're 30% short this year, which means food prices and food inflation, not just because of the lack of food, but also because of the cost of shipping food, is going to continue in 2023 as well. That's what we strongly believe on this channel. That's what we predict on this channel. And we believe that you will see that that's going to be what the case is. Dow says trends show escalation in Eastern Europe, which definitely will affect prices in concert with recession, which lowers long-term demand because of short-term pricing inflation over existing supply. And right now, Brazil is trending downwards in projected agricultural yield. That's the problem. Because they don't have the fertilizer and they don't have the energy. Energy costs too much. The cost of oil and gas is too high. Solar and wind don't work, especially when you're trying to run a factory vehicle or to process the crops. You don't have the fertilizer. They're not going to make the projections. No, we have said, and you're correct, Dow, the solution for the public in the face of this food crisis is to buy staples, to buy more rice, to buy more grain or flour, to buy potatoes, to plant your own vegetables in the backyard. Don't tell the FDA about it. They will come and take it from you. But grow your own vegetables to become self-sufficient and to buy foods that will last longer. You can look at video after video. We have been saying this for a year and a half, literally. For a year and a half, we have been telling everyone, go out, when you go to the store, buy 10% more food than you normally would. Buy more rice, more grains, more flour, more long-lasting canned foods. Do that. And if you have been listening to this channel on the Sunday live streams since January of 2022, you have stockpiled the food and you have saved money as the price of all the foods have gone up and up and up. You have a stockpile today and you have saved hundreds, if not thousands of dollars between January of 2022 to today if you have followed our prediction. And we believe that's still true. And that doesn't give us any money. That's just making sure you have food in your homes. Do not believe their words. The recession is not over. It's going to last until 2025. So, one moment. Sorry, there was a comment I was going to go to. Okay, we were talking about the inflation. And again, this is NBC News talking about it, trying to distract you to make you think. Inflation rose lowest rate, CNBC. Oh, sorry, wrong one. What is this? Nope, wrong thing, sorry. I have like 30 windows and I lost myself for a second there. Oh. Oh, yes. So far we've talked about what's happening in Africa. We've been talking about abandoning Americans around the world and the consequences of that. We've been talking about inflation. We've been talking about semiconductors and technology for the future. We've talked about climate change and how it's impacting us. We're talking about energy and its production and its distribution. We've been talking about inflation, which is directly tied to that. We've been talking about who is in the leadership and how weak the leadership is at this moment. That is a wide range of conversations, I agree, but there is more. By the way, I will be revealing hang on a second. So, just so everyone knows, we are going to be revealing the exclusive comments of Marc Molinaro in reference to his votes, both current and his upcoming vote on Adam Schiff. We're going to be revealing that very shortly, and we'll be having a conversation about that. But I wanted to take a moment. Did you hear about Representative Sheila Jackson Lee? That she has no idea what she's talking about, once again. That she wants to get rid of, that stabilizing braces somehow change a weapon, a firearm, and turn it into a machine gun. She is one of the least intelligent individuals talking about gun control, and she is constantly talking about gun control. This is the same woman who told you that an AR-15 fires a 50 caliber round. She has no idea what she's talking about. This is the same woman who is denying women around the world, around the United States, the ability to defend themselves. She's making it so that it's not cost effective for women to be able to jump through her hoops, to be able to defend themselves, even though she has private security protecting herself. AOC, Cori Bush, they all have their private security to make sure that they're safe everywhere they go. But the Democrat women that vote for them, no, that doesn't matter. You don't have to be safe. You get no safety whatsoever. She is actively here. This is showing her, this was on June 13th, as she was going and trying to take away federal funds to get rid of gas stoves. And she was talking about stabilizing braces, increasing the power of the ATF to be able to take away your property and deny you your rights. And nothing she has to say is correct. All the links for everything that we have shown you so far on the program are in the description. They will be in the description at the end of the show, so that you can see this all for yourself, so that you can watch everything for yourself and come up with your own understanding, to make sure that we haven't missed any context, so that you can see everything that is or is not being reported to you. And I think this is important, because they want you, Representative Sheila Jackson Lee, you can't look at her and say, oh, well, she's against braces, but she's a good, no, she's not good. She's not against stabilizing braces. She's against the Second Amendment. She wants to deny women, as well as anyone else, the right to defend themselves. She doesn't believe that you should be protected. You should obey and serve her. That you should obey law enforcement and do whatever they say, because you don't have a choice. And if Representative Sheila Jackson Lee would like to come on and dispute this with me, I'll be happy to do so. If Representative Sheila Jackson Lee, who wants to tell you that by adding a brace to a pistol, it suddenly changes the rate of fire, it suddenly changes the caliber of the bullets, it suddenly changes everything in the universe, please, I would love to have that conversation, Representative Sheila Jackson Lee, because you have no idea what you're talking about, because you're absolutely wrong. Whether there's a wood brace or a plastic brace, or whether it's whether it's a wood or metal stock, does not change the rate of fire. Whether there's a brace or not does not change the rate of fire, does not change the gun. That's like saying that if I change the color of my Lamborghini, it's suddenly going faster. Yeah, it's like 40K, Warhammer 40K. You think you happen to be an orc, and you think that red makes things faster. It just isn't real. It's not true. Although people who do have red vehicles, sports cars, do tend to get more tickets because of speeding. But even so, that doesn't make it go faster. Duct tape, yes. Duct tape is the original brace. And according to Representative Sheila Jackson Lee, she would take that away too. Because she doesn't understand the difference between a machine gun and a handgun. She doesn't understand the difference between a pistol brace or a stock of a firearm. And she wants to make sure that you are terrified and all you think of is whatever Hollywood has shown you, rather than actually encouraging people to go out and find out for themselves. Go to a rifle range, go to a gun range in your neighborhood and actually rent the vehicle, have someone train you, or just watch people use these firearms, and you will instantly understand Hollywood lied to you, and so did the Democrats. They just don't want you to have any power. They want you to be scared. Yes, that's right, Dal. That's the thing. That's why more people in red vehicles, red sports cars tend to get more tickets, is because they want to go fast. Not unlike Warhammer 40K, a game where orcs actually make it go fast because they think it goes fast. If you know Warhammer, that's the truth about that. But, it's the same thing here. It's Representative Sheila Jackson Lee wants you to think that a stabilizing brace somehow makes a firearm fire bigger, faster, stronger bullets than ever before. I don't understand how she gets to this. I don't understand how she gets to be reelected. She has never been right. As I can recall, in 17 years, I have not seen her talk about firearms and be correct. Almost everything that I can think of, whether it's H.R. 127, whether it's this bill, or talking about stabilizing braces, talking about the AR-15, her theories on a gun ban, I have never heard her say anything accurate about firearms in 17 years. And yet she gets reelected. And yet Democrats think she is brilliant when it comes to gun control, that she's trying to help you when she lies blatantly to your face. Please go to C-SPAN. C-SPAN does not edit. Don't look at the NBC version of this. Don't look at the New York Times version of this. Go to C-SPAN and see what she actually said. And if you listen to her speak, she doesn't know what she's talking about. Again. But that came and went. The news media didn't even notice. They were so busy trying to make you think about Trump is being indicted that they didn't tell you, oh, by the way, they're trying to take away the Second Amendment. They are actively trying to take away your right to defend yourself. They are making life more dangerous for women in America. Oh, you don't need to think about that. Trump indictment, Trump. That's the distraction. That's the conversation. Trump's been indicted. Trump said he's innocent. Biden says he's innocent. Obama says he's innocent. The FBI says that they don't want to look at whether or not Biden is guilty. There's an investigation that'll be done somewhere between now and 2030. Don't worry about it. But Trump's guilty. Oh, talk about that. Not about the Second Amendment, not about the economy, not about inflation, not about the fact that the Biden-Harris administration does not have a plan for the United States domestically or internationally, and our allies are being disturbed, that they have lost confidence, just as the American people have lost confidence in the Biden-Harris administration. That's not a question, that's a fact. It's true. Look at all the polling. Americans have lost confidence in Biden, and you should. He hasn't lived up to any promise, and none of his policies show a glimmer of positivity. None of his policies, whether it's international or domestic, no matter whether it's about immigration or inflation or anything in between. And that's really got to shake you up. It's got to make you wonder what the hell is going on right now. Because it makes me think that. There was something else I wanted to bring up. Let's talk about the things that don't make sense. Did you read at all the Supreme Court came out in favor of the Indian Child Welfare Act? Now, these are the same people we're told that are absolutely evil, like Neil Gorsuch, all the Republicans. They're horrible people. This is terrible. Supreme Court is controlled by Republicans and they want your kids to starve and die. They're terrible. Did you actually read what they had to say? This is from the Indian Child Welfare Act. And I want to read this because this is the Supreme Court at its best. And I want you to hear, this is the Gorsuch concurring comment. Often, Native American tribes have come to this court seeking justice only to leave with bowed heads and empty hands. But that is not because the court has no justice to offer them. Our Constitution reserves for the tribes a place, an enduring place, in the structure of American life. It promises them sovereignty for as long as they wish to keep it. And it secures that promise by divesting states of the authority over Indian affairs and by giving the federal government certain significant but limited and enumerated powers aimed at building a lasting peace. Let me stop right there. Indian tribes have control of their own lands. Indian tribes have their own laws. They have their own economy. They work in conjunction with the United States, but they are separate. And so, because of that separation, many of their problems are their own. Now, I will not deny that the United States hasn't helped, but we haven't hurt either. It's up to them on how they run their own country, or the Indian lands. But he goes on, and I think it gets very interesting here. In adopting the Indian Child Welfare Act, Congress exercises that lawful authority to secure the right of Indian parents to raise their families as they please, the right of Indian children to grow their culture, and the right of Indian communities to resist fading into the twilight of history. All of that is in keeping with the Constitution's original design. Is that not clear? Because we've heard the left demonize this. We've heard individuals say this is horrible. This is the American government getting involved in things they shouldn't. If there are no Indian people, there is no Indian tribe. It's something that I thought was interesting. And I don't think a lot of people actually read what was going on there. I don't think a lot of people actually heard what was being said by the Supreme Court. And that's kind of a shame. I wanted to bring up Robert F. Kennedy was on with Joe Rogan. Didn't I have that up here? Oh, I lost it. Sorry, folks. I got like 30 pages here. So, why is confidence so low? Is it just Joe Biden? Is it just the fact that Joe Biden has no plan internationally? That he has no plan domestically? That we're being invaded by illegal aliens that are going into crossing the southern border, that they are overwhelming Chicago and New York City, that New York City is illegally trying to force other counties to take the illegal aliens they never asked for and do not have the supplies to protect or to take care of. That's just one aspect of it. Why would you have confidence in progressives when that's what you get to see at those results? But how about the fact that there has been a massive data breach that I think we've all heard about this? That was a known problem. That we have seen this, that the DMV has been hacked, not just in Oregon, but also in, I believe it was in Louisiana. That we're seeing this same problem in multiple states. I would absolutely tell you that it's probably happening in New York State too, and has been for a long time. Do you remember our recent review? We covered the New York State Citizens Audit. Remember when we did that live stream? And the data that they have been able to find going back in time from 2020 and before, that according to New York State's documents alone, that well over 20,000 people were voting in New York State and didn't have an address, which is completely illegal. Completely illegal. People having no address, not the wrong address, no address. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. There are 1 million votes, potentially 1 million voters in New York State that have issues in the DMV. And now that we're seeing problems in Louisiana, we're seeing problems in Oregon, does that make you more confident that elections are safe? Does that make you more confident that the actual voting is being reported correctly? It doesn't make me feel safer. And why do we see these cyber attacks? Why are they going after the DMV? Because it's not for voting. Let's be honest. It's not because they want to change elections. It's because we have 6 million illegal aliens entering the United States, with more on the way. That this number has not stopped. That we're getting about 250,000 illegal aliens entering the United States per month on average. And they are overwhelming the system. And they are going out, and many of them are trying to get jobs. But they can't work as an illegal alien. It's a crime because they are a criminal. And so they have to have a fake ID. The reason why Ohio and Louisiana have been, Oregon and Louisiana have been hijacked is to support the illegal aliens. This is the problem. The problem starts with illegal immigration, which is something that the news media doesn't want to tell you. Why do they need the IDs? Why do they need the driver's licenses? Why do they need the public's identity for the people who don't have an identity? Because illegal aliens don't exist. They don't have any proof of who they are. They don't have any justification for being in America. They don't have any justification for working in America. So they have to steal that justification. They have to steal that identity so that they can get the job. That's why you're seeing this happen. Again, the dominoes fall. Illegal immigration, especially at the levels that we are seeing now, which are all-time highs, are leading to other crimes. Crimes that, if you ask the progressives, are not connected. They're not connected. Those two things are two separate things. No, they're connected. Because the root of the problem is the open border. The problem is that progressives like Joe Biden, like Kamala Harris, like Eric Adams, Whitmer in Michigan, like Gavin Newsom, have been inviting illegal aliens into our nation with open arms. And when they show up, that creates more crime. That's why we are seeing that slavery in the United States is up. And when I say slavery, I mean sex slaves, I mean child slaves, I mean human trafficking, however you would like to say it, that makes you feel better at night. That's why they call it human trafficking and not slavery, because it's slavery. And slavery is up. I know everyone wants to think of slavery as the 1800s. It's a black thing. No, it's not. Slavery is happening right now today. It's just called human trafficking because it sounds nice, because the political left have already bought and owned the term slavery and connected it to race relations in America that is stuck in the 1800s. That's not the reality of today. Slavery exists today. It's called human trafficking, and human trafficking is up because of illegal immigration, because we have an open border and progressives are saying break our laws. And when they break that one law, entering the United States illegally, then they break other laws, directly and indirectly. And the indirect is that they need identities. They need your identity so that they can get a job, so that they can live in the United States, so that they don't get deported. Crime begets crime begets crime. It's connected very directly. The dominoes fall in order. Is the sound all right there? Sounds a little off for me. But the news media doesn't want to have that conversation. Why is my... I'm not sure if the audio is messing up on my side or if it's on you guys. But you can see how this is connected. You can see how these things are interrelated. When we didn't have as much crime, we didn't have these kind of statewide data breaches, especially targeting people with driver's licenses and their personal IDs, so that they can have identity theft around the country. Their need has never been as high as what it is now to have these illegal identities, which is why we are seeing these massive breakdowns. And it is because these states have failed the public, because they have not kept up their infrastructure, because they are more interested in worrying about a living wage of $25 rather than actually helping the people who have the greatest need, that these failures happen. They're wasting money on climate change rather than doing infrastructure protection and rebuilding their infrastructure. No, they're worried about the greatest crime, the greatest danger to America and to the world is climate change, even though the United States leads the world in climate change reduction. Even though, state by state, we are ahead of the rest of the world, they're spending even more money on climate change, even more money on trying to take away your Second Amendment rights. Meanwhile, the people who are breaking the law, the illegal aliens, are getting away with murder. Do you think I'm wrong? I haven't said this in a little bit. I know it's a little bit into the show, but let me be clear. If you disagree, you can always call in to 607-242-9247. And you can tell me, Mike, I agree, I disagree. Here's something you didn't think of. Maybe there's something else that you wanted to talk about. You can have that conversation from anywhere in the world. If you happen to be in Angola, if you happen to be in Mali, if you happen to be in the Sudan, and you think I am misreporting that, more than happy to hear your call. If you're in the European Union or the United Kingdom, and you're upset about something I've said, or you want to include something, give us a call or send us a text on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter, on Rumble. Send us your chats. Let us see what you have to say. I'm more than happy to hear your voices, because that's what this is about. It's not just about what I think.
The city
I'm
of
just
Kenner is
presenting
invested in giving its residents
evidence
opportunities
that I
to
can
win.
find,
With the Grow
the
program,
evidence
you could
that is
find your
coming
pathway to a
predominantly
high-wage career.
from the
Grow your
left.
skills and programs for advanced
And I'm just making sure
manufacturing,
you
healthcare,
see
IT
what they're
foundations,
trying
and
to do
maritime,
to
all
you,
on the Delgado
how they are
Community
trying to
College, River
manipulate
City,
you,
Maritime,
how
and
they are
City Park
trying to
campuses.
abuse you.
You'll get hands-on training to
And
earn
they're doing so
industry-based
very
credentials
effectively,
that lead to a
because they
high-paying
want you to
career.
think,
With scholarships available,
well, the
you can
cyber
start your pathway to
cyber
employment.
hacks
Find
in
your path
Oregon,
forward
the
with
cyber
city of
hacks
Kenner
in
and
Louisiana,
Delgado Community
they're
College.
completely separate. separate. They have nothing to do with anything else. Some random criminal just did that just for the heck of
At
it.
this point, we have
Not
no
because
reason
they're
to
trying
believe
to
that
supply
data
a
outside of
need
what we've
for the
identified
illegal
has been
aliens that are
exposed.
in America
Certainly the scale
that are
of
trying
the
to get
data,
jobs to compete
in
with
the
you
OMV data,
and to
is
feed themselves.
so large as to involve
The illegal
most of the
aliens
aliens.
aren't
So that's
all
the
in New
scope
York
of what
State.
we're
They're not all in Chicago. They're not all in New Jersey or California. They're in Louisiana. They're in Kansas. They're in Colorado. And they need jobs. And they don't want to be deported. So they steal your identity in states that people aren't looking at.
So we are
If you
looking
have
at all
an
of
identity
the
that was stolen in
potential,
Oregon,
systems that were
guess what?
involved with
In
MOVE
North
It,
Carolina,
as soon
they're
as we
not
were
going to know.
notified that there was
It's
an issue,
highly unlikely
protective
that someone's going to
measures
put
went
the
into
two
place
together.
involving
If
that
you happen
software,
to be
and our
in
investigations
Montana
revealed
and your
no other
identity
issues.
stolen,
Obviously,
you're
this
not
is
going to know
ongoing,
that
and
it
so we'll
came from
continue to work that
Louisiana
and be looking
or
at
that they're
ways to
using your
ensure that
identity
for
in
this
Louisiana.
or for other issues that
That's
we've got
why they're
that
stealing
data
from
taken
these
care of. Yes,
states.
sir.
I have a commercial playing in the background.
So I don't want to get into the
Okay.
day-to-day on that, but we have updated.
Let me
the
try and
system
find it real
software
quick
with
here,
all
folks.
of the
Hang on.
patches that the vendor has put out.
I don't know
and we
where
are
that's.
following
I hate
and
these
working with our
automated
federal
systems.
partners, both CISA and
This is
FBI,
Google for you.
on
They just
additional
play a
measures to
commercial
take
just
to
because.
ensure that that system is safe, and so we're tracking that very closely. Yes, ma'am.
We know that
No.
people, state issued
Let me know if it stops because I think it was. No. No, it's not that chat is unsynced. They're just
I can't answer that
delaying it.
completely, but the scale of this would be that it would be wise to take protective action.
might have been NBC News. Bear with me as I try and get rid of it. No, it's still going there. Hang on. No.
So I don't want to get into the exact notification here. I think the important
No,
part
that's
is that we knew Wednesday night the scale of the data that was involved, and we met the next morning to walk through what that meant. Yes, ma'am.
Talk more about freezing your credit. Do you recommend everyone use all
Oh.
free?
Yep, that did it. Okay. So, yeah, that was the automated. That was from WWL, CBS News, out of Louisiana. So that's what it was. They were they were upset that I was mentioning Louisiana and that I was highlighting the fact of why this is a problem. Why the cyber attackers are targeting Louisiana. And it's very simple. Because of illegal immigration. That's what they're targeting. Illegal immigration. And that's why it's happening in these states that you would never expect it. I mean, who goes to Louisiana? Who goes to Oregon? Really? They're not the most primary sources. It's not somewhere that everyone's rushing on out to get to. Let's be honest with each other. They're really not. But, you know, the things that you're not being told. You're not being told about John Fetterman. I mean, let's listen to John Fetterman here. I want you to hear what he has to say. Okay? So this is from C-SPAN. This is John Fetterman, and I want you to hear him.
Earlier today, some comments about the tragic accident in 995, and if you want.
Now, to put it in context, John Fetterman is being asked a question. John Fetterman is following because people are saying things to him, but he has no idea what they just said. It's just no idea. He has no idea what people are saying to him. He has to read it to understand it. So this is his time limit. He's got 5 minutes. Look at how much time is being used up rather than being able to just communicate directly.
Make any comments with respect to that, feel free, you're recognized.
No, I would just really like to, the 95, you know, you know, obviously that, you know, you're pretty much preoccupied with 95, and I know I certainly am too, and we know it's a major aidery, not just for Pennsylvania, but for the East Coast. And a lot of Pennsylvanians are worried that the delays in repairs bring to its standstill deal.
Earlier today, some
So,
comments.
did you hear that? Did you hear what he was saying there? Did you hear the confusion from John Fetterman? And that was on C-SPAN 3, not the main channel of C-SPAN, not its secondary channel, its third channel. They buried this. They didn't want you to notice this. They didn't want you to realize how bad a job he was doing in representing the people of Pennsylvania, to not realize how much he is impacting the rest of the Senate. I don't care if this happens 1 out of 20 questions or 1 out of 20 times that he's doing his duties as a senator. There's no confidence in that, because he wasn't elected to be the best person. He wasn't elected to be the most effective and efficient person. He was elected because of feelings and progressive ideology. And this is what you get. That's what was hidden from you this week. That was something that happened 2 days ago. They did not, on Friday, they did not want you to notice how ineffective he is, how inefficient he is, how bad at representing the people of Pennsylvania he is, how bad he is at representing Democrats. And you can say, well, it's not 24/7. It doesn't have to be. It only has to happen once when it's important. It only has to happen once when it matters. It just has to happen when he's voting. And you can't tell me that John Fetterman, who can't speak, who can't hear what people are saying, is making every vote perfectly, that he doesn't make a mistake there. Are you sure that he didn't make a mistake? Are you sure that he's representing people properly? Even though he can't understand what they're saying to him, when he can't communicate with them, and you're telling me you're sure that he's doing the best job possible, that no one in the universe could possibly do a better job, even though he can't understand? And again, this goes back to, what are we seeing from the progressive movement? What are we seeing from, this is part of the Biden-Harris administration. This is another one of their symptoms, that we have representatives who don't represent the people and aren't effective and aren't efficient, and is showing the rest of the world that we are falling apart at the seams. That John Fetterman is part of the reason why Russia is in Ukraine, part of the reason why China is threatening Taiwan, why Iran thinks it can have the Iran nuclear deal to increase the amount of global terrorism in the world that affects not just Americans, but everyone. Everyone. They're going after Europe, they're going after Israel, they're going after the United Kingdom. This is part of it, is because we elect people who can't speak, who can't communicate. And in that failure of the communication, we have things like the retreat from Afghanistan, the abandonment of Americans in Ukraine and in the Sudan. But you're not supposed to think about it. Dow says, it's the Louisiana and Oregon are just like quick title theft. 1 minute you own your home, and in the next 15, someone else owns your home, and 6 months later, the legally liable homeowner is saddled with allegations of bank fraud and foreclosures. Yes, it is very much like that. Again, one crime leads to the next, and one failure by members of our government, like John Fetterman, lead to more of these problems happening down the road. Because the system is slowed down, it is stuck in the mud, it is grinding its gears, moving nowhere forward, and the problems keep piling up and up. The dominoes keep stretching out further and further in time, and we are more and more deeply impacted by all of these failures. Yes. Absolutely, that's what I believe. And absolutely, that is what we are seeing. And John Fetterman may be a great guy. He might be. I don't know. I also don't care. Because John Fetterman is a senator. And I don't care if he's a good person, a bad person, whether he has a great personality or a horrible one. Really doesn't make a difference to me. He's there to be efficient and effective. And he's not. Just like Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are supposed to be efficient and effective. It's not whether or not I want to go out and have a beer with them. It's not because I think they're great people. It's not because you could dream about having sex with them or having a date with them. That's not what they're there for. That has nothing to do with them having their job. Although we are told by the news media, by Hollywood, by social media, that that's how we should feel about it, that has nothing to do with their actual job duties. What they're supposed to be doing is being effective and efficient and representing the people. And you cannot point to John Fetterman or Kamala Harris or Joe Biden and say that's effective, efficient leadership. You can't point to Sheila Jackson Lee and say she is properly conveying the idea, the risk, the dangers, the benefits of the Second Amendment when she doesn't know what she's talking about, when she thinks that putting on something on your shoulder changes the mechanics of a firearm and turns it into a machine gun. At the same time that she's ignoring the fact that there are 732,000 Americans that own machine guns right now. There are Americans that own tanks right now. There are Americans that own F-16s right now. And she wants to take away your right to own a firearm because you have a brace. Think about it, a brace. That doesn't make it fire faster. It doesn't make it change the bullets it fires. It doesn't change anything except the cosmetics of the firearm. And she wants to deny you not just the firearm, not just the brace, but the entire firearm. She wants you to be a criminal. And we need people like John Fetterman to either explain why that's a good idea or a bad idea, and he can't even talk to you about I-95. How eloquent of him. How big of a problem is this? Now, I also want to talk about California and California's bill, which is California AB 957. By the way, many people in the news media have called it California Bill 597. That's not correct. The correct bill number is California AB, that's Alpha Bravo, 957. And this is about children. This is about blind affirmation. It was introduced on February 14th. And as you can see correctly, this is from Legiscan. And you can see that this bill, which has been introduced, what does it say? This bill is for the purpose, for purposes of provision, would make a parent's affirmation of the child's gender as part of health, safety, welfare of the child. Blind affirmation. Remember we were talking about this in New York? We said it was happening around the nation, that this is coming to your home. It's now through California. They're telling you that you as a parent could lose your custody, that your child custody could be contested, that the state can take your child if you do not blindly affirm what an 8-year-old says. And they want to say, well, that's just because you're a transphobe. That has nothing to do with it. An 8-year-old who might think that they are a frog today, a princess tomorrow, and a space scientist the next day, we're supposed to blindly affirm whatever that kid says. And if you do not, then the state is going to punish you. That they want to take away your ability to raise your child, and they want to punish you if you do not follow the political fad that is currently going on. And a lot of people haven't heard about this. Dow says, going back to John Fetterman, Dow says, placing a person in a position with the requirements of being effective and efficient with all of that responsibility authority is abusive, knowing what a struggle will be had by such an individual. Well, this is one of the reasons why John Fetterman was suffering depression. It's one of the reasons why he was institutionalized. Besides his health, the fact that the pressure was too much for him because he didn't understand and he could not communicate, which really does a disservice for the people of Pennsylvania. They are underserved. And again, adds no confidence for voters. It adds no confidence for the rest of the world looking at our system and saying, really, that's who you're electing? That's who's making the laws? How can we trust you? But how can we trust at the same time when we look at California and we look at bills like this one, where we are telling parents they must blindly affirm that they have no choice. They must blindly affirm what an 8-year-old, what a 9-year-old is saying, what a minor is saying, a child that has no idea. You could say, under this law, a 3-year-old. You have to blindly affirm what a 3-year-old is saying. There is no age limit on this, other than the fact that the child is under the age of 18. They're not an adult. And if you don't do what this child says, you're the bad guy. You're the problem. This is what California is saying. This is what the movement is saying. The political ideology is saying, that they have control over your kids. This is how the state takes your kids. We've seen it on TikTok. Libs of TikTok has shown us over and over again. All these teachers that are going into these kindergartens, into these schools. This is one of the reasons why in Florida they were banning so many books, because they're introducing sex and sexuality to children, to minors, to 8-year-olds, trying to convince them of things that those kids have no concept of. And if you are a parent and you have a problem with that, the government is coming to punish you. The government isn't saying that they're wrong. The government isn't saying that they may not understand. The government is saying you will be punished. Even as we are seeing that the public is saying they reject this. Look at The Flash. Thank God it is failing. Ezra Miller is a criminal, in my opinion. And actually, he is a criminal. And he should have gotten punished more severely. But that has failed. We've seen Indiana Jones has failed. We've seen She-Hulk. We have seen Guardians of the Galaxy. Just name your movie. Name the TV show. Rings of Power. They're all failing because they're all pushing this ideology that you must obey. Even if you don't understand John Fetterman, even if John Fetterman can't communicate and explain what he means, even if Sheila Jackson Lee lies to your face and has no idea what she is talking about, even as they are lying and the evidence is in front of you, that the border is secure as 6 million people walk across the border, that inflation is down as you pay more today for food than you have paid at any point before. They want you to believe these things, and they want you to know you don't have any choice, that the government made the decision and you have to obey, which I find to be terrifying. Which I absolutely find to be terrifying. Because this is not productive for you. It's not productive for anyone. And we should call this out. These are important things to call out. I mean, really. I would love to hear from the people who actually think that this is a good bill. That they think that California AB 957 is a good idea. That blind affirmation, if your kid comes up and your kid says that they are a frog, let's say your kid's 5, 6, 7, 8. They say that they're a frog. You have to say, great, let me get you a tadpole to sit, not a tadpole, a lily pad to sit on. Let me change the entire house and lifestyle. Let's start teaching you how to eat bugs. Because they want people to eat bugs anyway, so that's probably something they would support. But you're supposed to just blindly say that, yes, that's a great idea, fantastic. Your kid says, 5-year-old says that they want to be a dog because they love the way the family dog is treated. Everyone loves the family dog. And so they want to be treated like that dog because they're 5 years old. And they think, that great love. And they say, I want to be a puppy. And now you have to start feeding your kid puppy food because they're a dog. And you have to say, yes, that's wonderful. Sounds ridiculous, right? That's what this law says. A parent must affirm a child's gender identity. If your kid is 5 and they say that they're a frog, you have to feed them insects. If your kid is 5 or 6 and they say that they're a dog, you have to feed them dog food. That's what the law says. No one has thought about this consequence. No one has stopped and said, oh my God, Mike, that makes no sense whatsoever. That's insane. But that's what the law is saying. If you listen to this, if you think about this, because they're being very clear, identity is whatever you identify as. And you have no choice but to accept that. You have to believe that. So if that is the case, if your child says that they're a dog, if they say they're a cat, you have to give them cat food. If they say they're a dog, you have to give them dog food. If they say they're a frog or a lizard, you have to feed them insects because you must blindly affirm and believe whatever that kid says every time that they say it. That's blind affirmation. That's what this law is saying in California. And the news media doesn't want to have that conversation. Dow says that this is a good law, this is good legislation, if you are the government and looking for an inroad into private homes for power and control. Well, yeah, because now every single kid, when they go to preschool, when they go to kindergarten, as the teachers are telling them that they aren't the gender that they were born under, as they are introducing these ideas and concepts, the kids have no idea what they are. And the kids are saying, but yeah, well, I'm a puppy because puppies are loved. And if you tell your kid, no, that's not right, the government now has to come into your home and take away your children, and they have to punish you for not obeying the government. And the teachers will be the ones who will be turning you in. It's a lot of money. Yeah, think about, Dow, you're right. Think about the money. Every person who is trans spends about $1 million in their lifetime. I believe that's adjusted for also taking into account the HMOs and the healthcare plans. I believe the total is about $1 million over their lifetime. That's for the surgeries to transform the person and the medication and future surgeries that they need throughout the entire rest of their life. Something that isn't discussed in all these news media articles and all these affirmation laws. They don't talk about the suffering that someone has to go through for the rest of their life. They never mention that. They never consider, what if they're wrong? What if you're wrong just 1% of the time? This California bill that says that you have to treat children like puppies, like frogs, like cats. You have to treat them. You have to teach your kid to be able to go to the bathroom in kitty litter. This blind affirmation, they never consider the consequences of this and how this is going to affect anyone. And they don't consider, what if they're wrong? What if they're wrong just 1% of the time? We're talking about tens of thousands of children who are going to grow up with problems, lifelong problems, severe mental and physical handicaps for the rest of their life. And how is that going to play out? Maybe like Tennessee? I know, it's taboo. We can't talk about the Tennessee trans shooter. We can't talk about the manifesto that is in the possession of the FBI, that the police and authorities have in their possession and will not release to the public. They won't tell you that this person was so disappointed in the difference between the promise and the reality of being trans. I believe they will not show you that. They don't want you to know that this is the problem for the future, that people, maybe just 1%, even 0.5% of the people, but going by the numbers, up to 45% of people who have these surgeries wind up committing suicide. That's a fact. 45% within 5 years of having the surgeries commit suicide because it's not the solution to their problems. They're promised it is, they think it is, but historically, according to the numbers, that's not real. So imagine that in 10 years, we're going to see 45%, 40%, God help us if the numbers increase, that are going to be taking the most extreme actions possible. And how is that going to affect the rest of the world? I know social media doesn't like me talking about this. I know that the online overlords want to censor this part of the conversation, just like they don't like me talking about John Fetterman, but it's a conversation we should be having. We have to consider this. We have to consider this, especially when we have laws like this. When these laws are telling us that the future is going to be in danger. I just think it's important. And again, the bill number is California AB 957, because I've seen people type in or report it as 597. So I want to be very clear. It's California Bill AB 957, which was introduced on February 14th, Valentine's Day. This was their love letter to constituents in California. If you don't obey, we're taking your kids. If you don't obey, we're going to punish you. Your kids are in control of everything. You have no control. The government is in control of your family. You have no control. Dow says that Gateway Pundit just reported that Sam Bankman-Fried just had 5 charges dropped related to his Bitcoin crypto charges of fraud. Well, isn't that interesting? Do you think perhaps he's being protected by somebody? He helped to destroy the crypto industry. Let me bring this up for everybody. Here it is. And U.S. offers to drop some charges. Judge splits the charges. Scores a victory as prosecutors agree to withdraw 5 charges. Yeah. This came out about 3 days ago. They're dropping the charges. Gee, didn't he have a connection? Well, actually, let's check it out. Isn't he a political donor? Let's see. Sam Bankman-Fried was a huge political donor, according to public records. $70 million to election campaigns. Whose election campaigns were that? Who were the allies that he was giving this money to? That he was donating over $40 million to? Do you think it was Republicans? Let's see what the news media has said. This is what the left-leaning news media. This is CBS. Cryptocurrency destroyed the cryptocurrency industry. Crushed it. And let's see. Where is it? In Bahamas. support Democratic committees. Public records show that Sam Bankman-Fried's money primarily went to support Democrat committees and candidates. He donated $6 million to the House Majority PAC, that's Nancy Pelosi's PAC, the main outside group supporting Democrats, $250,000 to DCC, Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, DCCC, and $66,500 to the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee. These are the people who brought you none other than John Fetterman. This is who he donated to. And this guy, who made his donations, millions, tens of millions of dollars, and now he's getting off. Oops. And now he's getting set free. He has all the political donations, and now he gets to be out. Okay. Yeah, he said, again, as CNBC said, he is making donations to more than just the Democrats, but the majority were to Democrats. What a shock. More importantly, we should say, Sam Bankman-Fried, the man who destroyed the crypto industry, or one of the factors leading to the depression and loss in cryptocurrency value, he's a political donor. And now, even though he's guilty, all evidence points to the fact that he is guilty, even though we have seen the charges being put in front of him, rightfully so, and now he's getting a door out. He's being treated with kid gloves. It's a two-tier system. Shocking, isn't it? That the news is not highlighting this, that no one wants to talk about the political connections and how that may be influencing, or at least appears to be influencing, his sentencing. That the federal government, which is controlled currently by the Democrats and the progressives, are letting him walk away. How many millions of Americans were devastated because of FTX failing, because of his impact on the crypto industry? Yeah, it's about political favor. It's insane. Now, if there's someone who's into crypto and you want to tell me, Mike, no, FTX didn't have that big an impact on the crypto industry. You want to tell me, Mike, you just misunderstand. Sam Bankman-Fried wasn't the reason why crypto went down and lost about half of its value. We can have that conversation. You can call them to 607-242-9247. But all evidence says otherwise. It's insane. It is truly insane. And when we're talking about the kids, by the way, to bring it back to the kids, I want you to understand that it's not just in California, because people say, but Mike, it's only in California. Remember, we are spending $2.6 billion of your taxes to try to convince other countries around the world, to convince Africa and India and Pakistan and countries around the world to be California. We are trying to convince the world. We are spending 2.6, almost $3 trillion a year to try and convince the world that they should be able to let 8-year-olds chop off their genitals and pretend to be a puppy. And the world is rejecting it. But it's not limited just to that. Because if we are honest, it is also the White House saying that it's their kids. See, it's not just the California idea, it's the progressive ideology. The White House coming out and saying that it's all about their kids. June 14th, that they're saying that these are our kids, our neighborhoods, not somebody else's kids. They're all our kids, and all our children are the kite strings that will hold our nation together. Oh, no wonder he can say, no wonder Joe Biden can say, there it is, in California, You don't have a right to choose your child's gender. You don't have the right to raise your child the way you want to. It's not your child, according to Joe Biden. It's his child. It's the government's children. You are just in the way. How dare you be involved in their life? How dare you be involved in their education? How dare you be involved in their living? Because it's not your choice anymore. It's the government's choice. And the government has made up their mind on how they want to raise your kids. It's really very upsetting. And the government is making sure that they have control of every aspect. One of their political allies that makes sure that they maintain power, that has spent tens of millions of dollars to protect elected officials, to make sure that they remain in power, as I just showed you being reported by the left-leaning news media, are the same ones that are saying, maybe we shouldn't punish him. Maybe we should let him go. And that's going to bring me to another point. But I find this all very interesting. Again, folks, if you disagree, I'm more than happy to hear what you have to say. By the way, if you have found this to be interesting, informative, if you're not being cut off by the social media giants like Facebook and YouTube and Twitter, if they're not cutting the feed or delaying the feed, which it appears they don't like some of the subjects we've talked about. They don't like us pointing out what John Fetterman is doing in Congress. They don't want us to talk about bankman-fried and the potential of political interference in his criminal actions. They don't like us talking about illegal aliens, nor do they want us to talk to you about California's Bill AB 957. They have problems with all of this. But if you are watching the channel and you are finding it to be interesting, informative, please consider like, share, subscribe. Not that you have to agree with everything that we say. We don't ask for that. We ask you to be informed, and we ask you to come to your own conclusions, to make up your mind. We're just giving you the evidence of the things that they don't want to talk about. Yeah, I notice it is lagging. It's because they don't like any of the subjects we've been talking about today. Dow mentions the stream has been lagging. I've been seeing it kicking people off as we are continuing to talk and having problems with several of the major social media platforms. It's because we're pointing out the problems. Because we're pointing out that China is looking to invade Taiwan, and Antony Blinken isn't stopping that. That the Biden administration is continuing to talk to Iran, even though they have told the public they support women's rights. Sure they do. Meanwhile, they want to get their political win in, and that's why they're having talks about the Iran nuclear deal, which will fund global terror that will affect the world. They don't want to talk about the Americans that have been abandoned in the Sudan or Afghanistan or the Ukraine, and that the Biden administration is willing to abandon tens of thousands of Americans per year. They don't want to talk about that. There's a lot of these issues they don't want to have. No, I didn't mention Marc Molinaro yet. I'm about to start speaking about him now. I was leading up to that and talking about John Fetterman and talking about what's happening in California and what's happening with Joe Biden in support of this and taking away children away from families. So it's a great segue. Let's talk about Marc Molinaro. Marc Molinaro, who is the congressman, the representative of the New York 19th District, brand new position for him. He first term elected in Congress. He is a Republican. He is considered a moderate Republican in New York State. Was one of 20 Republicans who voted on House Resolution 489. Okay? And if you want to look this up for yourself and you want to see the vote for yourself, it's going to be Res 489. That's what you would look up. Because the news media doesn't like you to see the vote itself. They don't like you to know who actually did what. And just so you can see it, oh, there we go. So this is coming from Congress.gov, which is neutral. All they do is report on the bills. Adam Schiff was supposed to be censured and condemned for lying to the American people. Adam Schiff, for a fact, went on to TV on the national news media for 3 years in a row and told the American people he had evidence of Russian collusion. Whether you think Russian collusion is real or not does not matter. Not important. Even though it was debunked, completely debunked. 3 separate investigations, $40 million of your taxes were spent in investigating the Russia collusion hoax and found it to be false. It didn't happen. If anything, every single investigation into it found that Democrats were actually at the core. The Hillary Clinton campaign was at the core of pushing this false narrative. And we now know, because of the Durham report and another $10 million in investigation, that the FBI was helping to push this false narrative affecting elections in America. That's what the reports say. So YouTube, you can kiss my butt. I don't care if you don't like these terms. That's what the report said. And so at the core of this is Adam Schiff and many others. But Adam Schiff specifically was making promises to American people, much like Joe McCarthy back in the 1950s during the Red Scare movement. Oh, you're a communist and you're a communist and there's no proof, but we're going to call you a communist anyway and punish you. Well, Adam Schiff was running around saying, yeah, I've got evidence, I've got proof, and there is no proof. It does not exist. He factually and dramatically lied to the nation. And so he was supposed to be punished. And he would have been fined, a very large fine, for this lie to the public, this material, factual lie. And on the 14th of June, there was a vote. And I believe I have, here it is. And I want to show you the vote. So in this vote, at 4:21 p.m., we can see 20 Republicans voted to protect Adam Schiff, to protect lies against the American people. And those Republicans, and I want to put it in here for you so you can see, those Republicans included, wait a minute, let me make it easier for you to see it all. Marc Molinaro of New York. He voted to protect Adam Schiff. That's the proof. That's the truth. There is no question about this. It is not debatable. This is exactly what he did. And Marc Molinaro has been attacked. People are pissed at him. They are very upset. So, to give you an idea, Marc Molinaro, here's Olivia Beavers on June 15th, said, as a constitutional conservative, the revisions met his concerns about constitutionality. That constitutionality was his question. He thought it wasn't constitutional to punish a member of Congress for lying to the American people. Does that make sense to you? We can't punish members of Congress when they lie publicly to the American people. George Santos comes to mind. But you can't punish them. Or at least Marc Molinaro says it's not possible. But in the future, if this is brought up again, if someone ever claims that Adam Schiff lied to the American people and disgraced our Congress, he'll vote against it. That's what he said. And I will vote to hold Adam Schiff accountable in the future. And you see, there's a lot of problems here. The original censure was a referral to our ethics committee as well. That wasn't the concern. This is from the news media. Rocco Lucente, looking forward to seeing what the charges are. But my problem is that didn't explain your vote. Given the facts, please provide a clear answer. We were very, very explicit about that. Mr. Molinaro, please tell us, why did you vote to support, to protect Adam Schiff? Not because he's a Democrat, not because Adam Schiff is a progressive. I don't care about that part of it. Adam Schiff lied. He factually, dramatically, demonstrably lied to the American people. And you supported that. I have a problem with supporting people who lie to the American people. I don't care what party they're in. I don't care what was the reason for it. He lied. It was a fact. And so I have a problem there. I also sent him this message directly to Marc Molinaro. Representative Marc Molinaro, I am disturbed by your vote in House Resolution 489 in favor of Adam Schiff. I am unaware of you publicly explaining your reasoning given proven facts of lying to the public. Will you explain your vote publicly for constituents here, or you can do an interview that we've already agreed upon? And just to be full disclosure, Marc Molinaro already agreed during his campaign in 2022. He agreed 3 different times that he would come onto this program and do an interview with you, either as a candidate, and now since he has been elected in Congress, we have been trying to work out a time for him to show up on this program to answer your questions, like we have interviewed Claudia Tenney and many other elected officials, many congressmen, members of Congress that we have interviewed on this program in the past. To this day, Marc Molinaro, who has our phone number, who has our email, his staff know who we are, and he has my Twitter as well as direct messaging me, has yet to respond. He has never responded to our request for interview that we have made consistently with him. And we have seen him in person because he lives in our district. He is my congressman. And in person, he has agreed that he will do an interview and has never actually come forward to do it. I just wanted to give full disclosure of the truth. So he says this was a violation of the Constitution. That's what he's saying on Twitter. So again, we asked him, it's not clear. You're saying that this wasn't constitutional. He didn't say, why is it not constitutional? You know what? Let me make sure I make this clear for people. I want you to see exactly. I want to make sure that I'm being as fair as possible as I can be to Marc Molinaro. So, this is Marc Molinaro's official New York 19th Member of Congress page. So I want to be sure that everyone knows. I'm not making this up. Let's go back in time to June 14th. On his official page. Oh yeah, it's Father's Day. I forgot about that. So we got to go back. And I'm just making sure you can see for yourself. He's at Tioga County. June 16th, he's talking about dairy farms. June 16th, Special Olympics, dairy farm. And there it is. On June 15th, this is the only comment officially made by Marc Molinaro that I am aware of. If we go on down, June 15th, no comment. Here it is, June 15th. We will get this right and hold Adam Schiff accountable. We're working with Representative Luna on language to fix the resolution and hold Adam Schiff accountable. What's the problem? What is it that needs to be held accountable? So there's 2 comments there. I want to make sure this is all he has to say. So I want to make sure that I presented to you all the evidence that he's saying there was a problem, it was constitutional, and he didn't vote for it. You notice in every single comment that he has made, he doesn't explain what was the issue. Not a problem. So, if I can bring this up, come on. Just give me a second. I'm trying to be very careful here. There it is. Now, let me move myself over. How am I going to do? Nope. Hang on. I just have to bring this over so you guys can see this. Come on, there. Left, right. Come on. Can you read this right here? Is that clear for everyone? Hang on. Trying to make sure that you guys can see what I can see right here. And I just want to make sure that you can see it properly. Left, right. No, that's the widest I can make it. Why? Oh, I got it locked. That's why. There we go. Now you can see it. So right here you can see the response. This is from Marc Molinaro himself. This is a direct message. Mind you, again, I said publicly explain yourself. I said to Marc Molinaro that we wanted a public explanation of his position. So he responded privately. And I feel perfectly fine as a member of the press that he is aware of to answer the question. He knew I was asking an on-the-record public question. Therefore, I am showing you the direct message he sent to me. And that direct message from Marc Molinaro says there were constitutional concerns that the sponsor was willing to address. This concern was shared by some of the more principled conservatives. He means Thomas Massie. She improved the language, resubmitted the bill, and we will vote again next week. I will support the improved resolution. He doesn't answer the question. As you can see in his direct statement, and I am verbatim quoting every word he said, the question that I made to him is to publicly make a response and to explain why in the first bill he didn't. He said there is a constitutional issue. What is that issue? He was not restricted in the amount of words that he could use. He was not restricted in the time. He has my phone number. He has my email. He has my Twitter account. He has met me in person. He knows many of the people that I know in Broome County. He could reach me a dozen different ways. And instead, Marc Molinaro said, there's a problem. Some other people had the same problem. I won't tell you what the problem is. I won't tell you what the problem dealt with. I won't tell you why I did this. But I will tell you that in the future, after the backlash, after tens of thousands of people have responded to him and told him that he has screwed up, that he is not properly representing the people of the New York 19th District, only then has he come out and said, don't worry, in the future, I'll get it right. Does that make any sense to anyone? And I know, Marc Molinaro, he's a Republican, Mike. I don't care. I have met Marc Molinaro several times in person. I have spoken with him. I have asked him questions. I've been at his town halls. And I And he's a Republican. I'm a Republican, a conservative Republican. And I will hold him accountable just as I do AOC, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Joe Biden, anyone in the world, Rishi Sunak. I will hold all politicians accountable. This is unacceptable. When the question that people are asking over and over and over again is, Marc Molinaro, why did you vote in favor of Adam Schiff, who has blatantly and absolutely lied? And he won't give us an answer. And by the way, Hal Stewart, Hal, you're saying it violated the Eighth Amendment. For people who are not familiar, the Eighth Amendment is unusual punishment for a crime. So, for people who don't know, Eighth Amendment, excessive bail shall not be required, nor excessive fines imposed, nor cruel and unusual punishments inflicted. So, punishing someone who went out and lied to the American public for 8 years, that affected the politics of the United States and the impact of the politics of the United States for 3 years. Yeah, it's not an Eighth Amendment issue. It just isn't. The fine isn't excessive. Take up 350 million people in America, $1 per day that he lied for 3 years. Yeah, the fine isn't even close to excessive. Because that's what he impacted. He impacted the politics of the United States and the rest of the world. He was impacting and influencing international politics as well as domestic politics. If you only assigned $1 per American per each instance that he lied and took away the confidence of the world and the United States against our legally elected officials, then you still don't equal the fine. It's not excessive. Let me go. And Dow says that you can't uphold the Constitution and not hold Schiff accountable for abusing the Constitution, which is true. Mike says, hey all, Mike called in. Hello, Mike. Hey all, as a Democrat, I'm hoping either Gavin Newsom runs or Biden gets out of the race. Don't want him as a Democrat nominee in 2024. Well, Mike, Gavin would understand that in 2028. Westmore, Mike says Gavin should understand that in 2028, Westmore or Josh Shapiro will be hot candidates for the Democrats. Now is his chance. Mike, I don't believe that Gavin Newsom has a chance at all. California is bankrupt and even deeper in bankruptcy throughout the time of Gavin Newsom. He's supporting things like California Bill AB 957, which we were just speaking about. He has supported the lockdowns in the past. He's supported the jabs, assuming that there would be no negative impact. He followed the lead of New York State in putting elders in harm's way in nursing homes in California, just like Governor Whitmer as well. I don't think he does as well as you think he does. Could he run? Yes. Will he win? No. Is this his time? I doubt it. But I thank you for mentioning it, Mike. So, and again, Hal. Hal, you're bringing up a good point, and this is possibly the reason that Marc Molinaro is using for his excuse. But I don't know. See, it's kind of funny. He's completely ignored the question. Because all he had to say, if this is the case, and this is important, Hal, in talking about Marc Molinaro, all he had to do is say, Mike, this concern was shared out. There were constitutional concerns, and the concerns were shared by some of our principled representatives. All he had to say is, it's the Eighth Amendment. Mike, my concern was the Eighth Amendment. That's all he had to say. But here's the thing. He didn't say that. He did not say, he was not limited in time, in content, in the amount of the response, possibly this was members of staff responding to me, not realizing who I am or the fact that I actually know Molinaro and that he has my phone number and that we have spoken on many times. Maybe this was one of his staff members who's using his account to respond. It's possible. But even the staff, if they're just doing blanket responses to all of the thousands of people who have asked this question, they should be able to answer it. He didn't say it's the Eighth Amendment. He didn't say it was the first, the second, the 15th. He didn't say anything. He says there was a problem. We know there was a problem. We have a problem with what you voted on. We want a reason. How am I supposed to judge him? Is he being effective? Is he being efficient? Is he representing the people? Is he representing the Constitution? You're saying there was a constitutional problem. What was it? Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness? Come on, Mr. Molinaro. You can do better than what you have just presented to us. You can't try and half-ass this and think that no one's going to care. There are tens of thousands of people who are upset, rightfully so. We have a crime. We know the crime existed. We don't know. Let me go back to some of the comments here. Dow mentions that it's hard to use that argument that it's constitutional or maybe the Eighth Amendment unless you're willing to be even-handed and say that the fines against private individuals like Alex Jones were excessive. And Hal says he's not sure. He's just throwing out ideas of what Marc Molinaro think. Here's the key, and I'm glad that you said that, Hal. It's important to understand. Marc Molinaro needs to be clear. Neither you nor I nor anyone else should be guessing at what he means. He has had the opportunity. He is a member of Congress. I am a news media service that he knows. He has multiple ways of contacting me directly. Maybe he felt that because I'm a Republican, I'm just going to let it go, that I'm just going to ignore it. No, I am not. I will hold his feet to the fire. Last week I was holding the chairman, Benji Fetterman, who I also know, who has failed Broome County, and I was holding him accountable. I will hold every Republican who fails to do their job properly accountable. And I'm not afraid of, oh my God, but it's the Republican Party. I care less. Marc Molinaro, you need to give the public an answer. I'm trying to be as fair as I can. The answer you gave was poor. I believe it's probably one of your staffers, but you have non-answered this every time someone has asked you, which gives me zero confidence. It would be very simple to say, it's the Eighth Amendment. Whether I agree with that or not is immaterial to the fact that it's an answer. But what you're giving us is not an answer. It's a constitutional issue. The Constitution's a pretty damn big document. What is the issue? What is it? Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness? What is it? Hal says, I should primary him and teach him a lesson he'll never forget. Well, if I've primaried Republicans in the past, Richard Hanna, because I thought they were failures. While that would be fun, and while I would like to be in Congress, the local GOP would not support me and would undermine me, as they have in the past. Mike, I know, Democrat Mike, I know that you're talking about Gavin Newsom. Give me a moment. We will come back to that. You have several statements about Gavin Newsom versus Joe Biden. I am seeing it. I will address it. Give me one moment. Dow says, did anyone notice that Hannity looked like they shot him with an orange filter? Yeah, fake suntans. So, I don't know. Maybe it's me. But Does this make sense to everyone? We need to hold, especially as Republicans, we need to hold our elected officials at a higher standard. We demand that. I demand that of Biden, of Kamala Harris, of AOC, of Chuck Schumer, Kirsten Gillibrand. I demand it of the left. I must demand it of the right as well. That I cannot, when they blatantly, when we are watching members of Congress blatantly just ignore not just the will of the public, but the voice of the public, when they are not doing enough, when they are failing at their job, yes, I must call that out. I think it's very important. I think it's vital. By the way, let me make it clear. Marc Molinaro is always welcome on this program. If Representative Marc Molinaro wants to call in to 607-242-9247 right now, I will give him as much time as he needs to be able to explain this. If he would like to do an interview separate of this and be able to answer this question and others for the constituents, I will be happy to give him all the time he needs. I have no time constraints. If it takes 2 hours to explain it, I will publish that unedited, word for word, verbatim, as I have in every interview I have ever done with every candidate, no matter their political background. So, Marc, if you're watching this, if your staff is watching this, and if you're upset, the answer isn't to be upset. The answer is to answer the question. You can do it through email. You can do it through Twitter. You can do it through calling into this program or setting up an interview. I don't care which one you use. Answer the bloody question. Why did you vote to protect a criminal, an internationally recognized criminal, Adam Schiff? He broke the law. He lied to the American people. It's not in question. Therefore, why did you vote the way you did? You're only one of 20 Republicans that did this. Why? I understand why Thomas Massie did it. That's his reason. He has to deal and address and speak with his constituents because he gave them a reason. Whether they like it or not, that's for Thomas Massie to deal with. You, Marc Molinaro, are not Thomas Massie. Don't ride on his coattails. What is your reason? Exactly, explicitly, in detail. What is your reason? I don't have to like it. I don't have to agree with it. It doesn't matter. I just want the answer. It's that simple. Marc, call in. Someone in your staff is watching this. Call in. Have your staff call in if you don't want to be the one to do it. Give us an answer. Going on. So, as I was talking about Marc Molinaro, which will piss off some Republicans, I'm sure. Mike, you shouldn't call out a Republican. Of course I should. Of course I should. When they do the wrong thing, we call them out. That's how we get them to do the right thing in the future. Democrats should do this with their people too. Call out when someone is screwing up so that they don't screw up in the future. We need to do that more, not less. He doesn't get a pass just because he's a Republican. Sorry, doesn't work that way. But while we were having that conversation, we had another message that came in from Mike, who is a Democrat. He identified himself as Democrat Mike. Okay, so we know who we're talking about. And Democrat Mike is mentioning and talking about in the chat, as you saw, about Joe Biden and Gavin Newsom. And going back to Gavin Newsom, Mike believes that Gavin Newsom, as he says, is younger and a better message for the Democrat Party, and that he would prefer to vote for Gavin versus Joe Biden. Now, first of all, Democrat Mike, you're right. 58% of Democrats also agree with you on this, that they don't want to see Biden go forward because Biden is failure. Everything, all of his policies, everything he has done has been a failure, and he has embarrassed the United States multiple times, not just when he falls upstairs, falls downstairs, and falls across a flat stage, but because of the things that he says. But here's the thing. Gavin Newsom, though he is young, I give you that. He's younger than Joe Biden. Everyone is younger than Joe Biden. The fact is, Gavin Newsom is a failure. He has failed the people of California. Whether it's talking about the drought and the water shortages that they've had to deal with, the fact that the state is going bankrupt under his guidance and leadership, that it's one of the largest states that people are evacuating. There was a massive exodus. New York State and California are the two biggest states that everyone is running from. Democrats are running away from the leadership of Gavin Newsom because he has failed on an economic as well as security and every other issue, immigration as well. So I don't think he's a better message for Democrats, although he may be great for progressives. Not the same thing. Because Gavin Newsom is a progressive and a very, very strong progressive at that. Democrat Mike says that he was listening to Hannity when Gavin Newsom was on, and he thought he held his own against a far-right commentator. And that's a good thing. But let's be honest. Hannity is a commentator. They were on a time schedule, a very short time schedule. And all of that has nothing to do with Gavin Newsom's record. Look at his record. The things that I'm speaking about with Gavin Newsom in terms of the death of elders during the lockdowns, the economy of California, the exodus from California, the increased $10 billion in excess spending that they just happened to miraculously find, the illegal immigration and sanctuary state status. These are historical facts. Whether or not he has a good interview does not take away the evidence and the factual history of Gavin Newsom. He is a horrible choice for Democrats, but they have nothing but horrible choices. Whether it's Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Marianne Williamson, Joe Biden, or Gavin Newsom, they're all bad choices. None of them will produce a good outcome, no matter which one you want to pick, in my opinion, because of the history each and every one of them have and their positions in each and every one of them. So, Mike, when you say that an 82-year-old Biden has a better chance of beating Trump or DeSantis, no, I don't think he does. But I don't think Gavin does either, because what he stands for is horrible. But, as you say, Mike, that is your choice. You're a Democrat, you're supporting Gavin Newsom. Great. I'm happy that you're involved, and I truly am. I am happy to hear that you are being involved in your local politics, in your political views, and I wish you the best success with that. I'm happy for you. But I'm telling you that Gavin Newsom, if you're judging him only by a political interview that is edited, no. Look at his history. Look at the history of each of the candidates. Then make your choice. Republican or Democrat, Libertarian or Conservative, look at their histories, then make your decision. Not off of some news media event. Hal Stewart, in referring to Marc Molinaro, says, I'm not sure if you're suggesting this or not, but we may agree. The, quote, constitutionality, end quote, bit is just a cop-out. He felt the backlash and is changing his stance based on the backlash. Well, Hal, I have to believe that. Based on his comments, the timing of his comments, and the manner in which he is commenting, this is either Marc Molinaro himself or it's his staff. And if it's his staff, fire whoever's doing this. They're doing a bad job. They have poorly conveyed the political record, the voting record of Marc Molinaro. So if it's a staff member, I'm sorry, get him retrained or get him fired because they're doing a horrible job. But if these are the words and text of Marc Molinaro himself, or at least approved by Marc Molinaro himself, it is a cop-out. It is a cop-out because it fails to answer the public. And that's something I will call out. I don't care what political backing he has. I will call you out. I'm not afraid of members of Congress, never have been, and I'm not afraid of calling you out for it. And yes, he does appear to be now changing. Yeah, I guarantee in the future, I will make the right decision in the future. You shouldn't have made the wrong decision in the past. Can you tell me why? This is a significant character issue. We really need to understand this because whatever the reason was he voted in favor of Adam Schiff, maybe something that he's going to do in the future too. It makes me worried. Miss Kay out of New Zealand has joined us, and she mentions that it does look like people are covering up for people who are lying and protecting them. I agree with you. I hope it's a good Monday morning down there, Miss Kay. Thank you for joining us. Dow mentions that all elected officials should be held at a higher standard while they are in office. And so, I think this is massively important. Not because, I'm not Republican. I love that some people will say, well, you're not being Republican enough, or you're being too partisan, or you're now a progressive. No, I'm being fair. I'm a harsh judge of most elected officials. That includes those in my party and out of it. And when someone is failing the public, I will call that out. The mainstream news media won't. The political parties won't. How does that benefit anyone? Telling Marc Molinaro that dodging the questions of his constituents is okay does not help anyone. Ever. I have never accepted that ideology. I never will. Not to say that, and it's not to say that there has never been a politician who's never dodged a question. They do. Except when they do it to me, or I'm aware of it, I will call it out. When they dodge questions, I will say, follow up. No, that's not good enough. You didn't answer the question. And you can look back at our interviews with candidates for every elected office from local to state in different countries, different counties and different states across America going back to 2008. And we have always held that same standard for everyone, regardless of whatever party or political affiliation they may have. We believe in being fair, but we also believe in being accurate. And we believe in holding people accountable. Now, if that means that they have a negative political backlash, I don't care. Dow says, I'm in the greatest political party, the representation of the greatest minority on the planet, the individual. I think that is most of us. And I know, Dow, we were recently having a conversation in person about this, that it's down to the individual, it's down to you and me. That if we are thinking of this properly, if we think of politics from our point of view, first and foremost, then we will improve this system. I think it's very true. Look, if we don't ask these politicians, I know I'm harping on Marc Molinaro, in part because I have met him in person, because he does have my phone number and my email, because he has promised to do an interview with me and has failed to live up to that promise, because he's a Republican. I am holding him harsh. And yes, I will be perhaps even more harsh to him because I have even higher expectations of him, though I have held AOC and Cori Bush and all the rest to the same standard that I'm holding Marc Molinaro to. It's not new, it's not separate, and it's not personal. But we have to. We cannot improve this system. We cannot recapture the confidence in America domestically and internationally if we don't get answers, if we allow our political elected officials to get away with stupid crap like this. If his answer is, I had a constitutional concern, you can say that to anything. You can claim any vote and any position It doesn't matter what you stand for, you can say it's a constitutional issue. Yeah, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's why I voted that way. That's why I won't vote that way. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Come on, Marc. Marc Molinaro, you can do better. Because that's just ridiculous. I mean, really. You had a chance to hold him accountable, and you chose not to. Why? Yes, he is my representative. I'm his constituent. I'm also the news media. And he knows it. He's answered my questions in the past, even when he was running for governor. Marc has a history with me. And I know that there are friends of Marc Molinaro in the New York 19 who aren't friends of mine, who do not like this channel and do not like what we say, and maybe that's part of the influence. But you're right, Dal. My taxes are paying for Marc Molinaro's salary. My votes helped to get him in office. The votes of others in this district got him elected. He swore an oath to serve the public, not the other way around. Which means he answers our questions. Not that we have to like the answer, not that we have to approve of the answer, but he has to give us an answer. Especially if he wants to get reelected. It's just that simple. Or it should be. Ms. K says he's avoiding it and he thinks he's addressing it by saying he will get it right in the future. So he believes he's acknowledging the issue and hoping this will blow over. Yes, it is insulting. It is very insulting to think, oh, I just will skip past this. You didn't like that? Don't worry, I'll take care of it later. I'm sorry, no. How's that not different than what Joe Biden's saying? How is that fair, honest, effective, efficient? My biggest things about every politician, is that effective? Is that efficient? It's neither. And it is insulting to voters. And he deserves this huge segment that I am dedicating just to him because he is failing. And I don't want him to fail. And in fact, this is a message. Marc, you can take this negatively. Excuse me, Representative Molinaro, you can take this negatively. You could be upset with me because I'm exposing your failure, that I'm exposing something you did that is not appreciated by not just your constituents, but Republicans across America, and many Democrats across America, and many Libertarians across America are all pissed at you right now. You and 20 other people. Thomas Massey has explained himself. You haven't. You haven't earned our forgiveness or our forgetfulness. So you could be upset by this. Or you could take it as a learning moment. This is your first term, your first year, first 6 months in Congress. Learn from this. The answer is, you must give us an answer. Right or wrong, whether we like it or not, you have to give us an answer. Because if you continue down this path, you won't be reelected. And you shouldn't be. Anyone who does not answer the questions, directly answers the questions of their constituents, and especially the news media, doesn't deserve to be in office. You're better than this. When I was at the town hall in Vestal, and you were taking the questions of the public, many times after that event, people have come up to me and said, oh my God, I hate his answer, but he gave you an answer. I defended you, both publicly and on this program. I defended. You answered the question. Wasn't necessarily the answer anyone wanted. Didn't make people feel rah-rah great, but you answered them. And that is being effective as a representative of Congress. Now you're not. You're going backwards. You're letting the position, you're abusing the position. Are you letting power get to your head? Let me knock you down a peg or two. You're just a member of Congress. That doesn't make you better, and it doesn't absolve you of the absolute necessity to answer to the public. As you can tell, folks, I get very upset about this because I think this is a really big deal. And I think the problem we have now, the reason why we're seeing California try and tell people how to raise their kids and punish them if they don't raise the kids progressive enough, the reason why we have an open border, why Eric Adams is trying to force you to take his problem, to deal with the illegal aliens just like it was Martha's Vineyard, is because we're not holding them accountable. Because the major mainstream news media is so busy trying to tell you everything is great, don't worry, obey, vote Democrat. They're so busy with that message that they're missing the fact that they're not helping anyone with that message. It's not to anyone's advantage. One of the greatest things about America is the fact that we can hold our politicians accountable, regardless of who they are or what party they're with, what affiliation they may have. You can't do that in Uganda. You can't do that in South Africa. You can't do that in Mali. You can't do that in North Korea, China, Iran, Russia, Ukraine. You can't do that around the world. And we need to make sure that you can always do that and that you won't keep falling down this slippery slope of, just obey. I realize there's an 80, did you know, folks, that if you get elected into Congress, you make it through your second term, you have an 88% chance of being reelected to office until you die, which is huge. That they will stay in office for decades upon decades until they die or they retire. And it's more likely that you will die in office than retire out of office. And if we don't train our politicians now, they will only get worse. Oh, I guarantee you, if he didn't get paid, he'd answer all kinds of questions. He'd vote differently too. Look, Marc's been in politics for his life. He got elected first when he was 18. He's been doing politics forever. This is his job. This is his career. He knows better. That's another thing that makes me so upset about this. He knows better. He's been doing this a long time. Now, people who are watching the program go, but Mike, you talk about international politics. You talk about things that are happening around in California, in Oregon, in Louisiana. You talk about all these things happening in all these states. Why are you so upset about this one member of Congress? It's not just because he's my member of Congress. He's an example. Every other member of Congress is looking at the reaction. The rest of the world, the Democratic Party, in looking for a candidate to run against Marc Molinaro, and which would be Josh Riley. Josh Riley right now is learning, I don't need to answer questions. Or maybe Marc is learning from Josh because Josh doesn't like to answer questions. So we're getting this, we have two candidates, Josh Riley and Marc Molinaro, who are running for the New York 19th District, and both of them are in this pattern of not answering questions. And how is that going to affect Pennsylvania, which is just 15 minutes away? How's that going to affect the other 23 seats in Congress in New York? 22 other seats in Congress in New York. How is that going to affect Ohio, New Jersey, Connecticut? How are all these other states reacting to this? And everyone else is learning, the new guy doesn't have to answer questions. So what about those politicians who've already been in office for a long time, who already think they don't have to answer questions, and now they're getting confirmation? This is a big deal because it's not just one representative. It's not just the 20. It's everyone. And the news media is letting them get away with this. The news media is not holding them accountable. Exactly. No one in the uniparty would be safe. This is the problem. They need to respond. And the news media needs to hold them accountable. It should not fall upon No Soundbites Allowed to be the only person who is publicly calling out Marc Molinaro, just like I shouldn't be the only one calling out the Broome County GOP for not speaking about the illegal immigration issue from Eric Adams in New York City. Where are the Republicans? Where is the conservative voices? Where are the libertarians do have a voice. Larry Sharp, he is speaking about these things. I'll be fair to Larry, who is a friend of mine. He is speaking about it. Where's everyone else? Why are they not holding these people accountable? And if you won't hold them accountable to something this simple, what about when it comes to gun control? What about when it comes to abortion? What about it comes to an issue that you do care about? What about the next vote? Something that matters to you, whatever it may be. Is it college debt? Is it the national debt? The illegal immigration? Smoking? Illegal drugs? Whatever the issue is, if he's not answering questions now, why would he answer questions in the future on those super controversial issues, those hot button issues? Dow says, the neighboring states are going to wonder why their populations are rising as American refugees start abandoning their originating states as bad policy pushes everyone out. Yeah, it's a reason to leave state by state. It really is. Again, let me be clear. Marc Molinaro, Josh Riley, any candidate across America can answer these questions. I will give them as much time as they need. They can call into 607-242-9247. You can email me. My email is public. I don't hide. I'm very easy to find. You can contact me, and I will set up an interview with you to take as long as you need to answer these questions. But just understand, you can't dodge the questions. That's unacceptable. And I don't know if I've pissed off all my Republican base and the conservatives in going through this. Don't know. Maybe I made the point already. Maybe not. And again, why did I show the direct message? Because it was a public question from the news media, and Marc knows it. So I didn't provide private information to the public. Made a point of it. I'm showing you what he actually said. That really upset me. It really upset me. So, folks, tell me what's on your mind. We've got a little bit of time. I want to go about 15 minutes or so. Somewhere between the next 3 to 15 minutes. As I said before, I have to prepare to get to New York. I will be in New York next week. I will probably do a video or two from New York City, where I will be. It's part of the move that we are making on the channel as we're going through this process. And let me also give a public service announcement. Please be very careful for those of you who are homeowners and you have mortgages, and because of COVID, because of politics, because of your age, you may be running into difficulties with paying your bills, to pay your mortgage. And I know there are some programs to help with that, but that's not always necessarily available, nor is it necessarily the answer to the problem. Be careful. There are companies out there that are sending out emails that look legal and official, that are saying, that are trying to take advantage of you. I know because it happened to me, where a company said that I was going to lose my house at the beginning of this month, and that I had no time left and no options left. And it wasn't true. That they were trying to take advantage, to take my property without, under the worst possible light. They were trying to take advantage of me. Now, I spoke with the judge, and we do understand the amount of time I have left, and it's a little bit longer than I initially expected. And I'm working on that. And of course, I'm working to move, as I said. But I want you to be aware that there are people who are taking these opportunities and they're trying to take advantage of you. They're trying to abuse the lack of knowledge. People don't know what goes on when you have a bankruptcy, when you have a foreclosure. It's not really well documented. The documents you're supposed to receive, what time frame, how many meetings are there. No one really goes over that. And I may do that in the future when it's not so personal to me, so I can be objective about it. But these are the things we're not hearing about. We need to. And therefore, I want you to be aware. If you get a document, double check that it is online. Double check that the court has recognized that document, that it does exist. And then take action. It's an important public service announcement there that I personally have gone through, that has caused undue stress. Dow says, no matter which way the answer leans or the ideology the answer supports, we need leadership in America that is willing to be honest and understandable if leadership is to be genuine and in good faith. So that applies to John Fetterman as much as it does Marc Molinaro. And I agree. And thereby trusted in their role as representative. You can't trust someone as a representative if they won't answer your questions, either because they are incapable, like John Fetterman, or because they're dodging, like, say, AOC, or, in this case, Marc Molinaro. It's not something that's limited to progressives or Democrats. Anyone in the political spectrum can do these things, and if we allow them to do it, they will only get worse. That's the way I feel about that. I don't know. Maybe people think I'm wrong. Maybe you think I'm just, you're just not Republican enough, Mike. As some people in the New York 19th District would like to tell me. You're just not Republican enough. If I'm not Republican enough, if I'm not conservative enough, show me what is. I'm not sure if there is anybody I'm aware of that's more conservative and Republican than I am. Publicly. So that's not an answer. But anyway. And again, that bill is HRES, R-E-S, 489. Yes, Adam Schiff is not out of danger yet. Adam Schiff may, big word, may, be held accountable in the future. He may be held accountable for lying to the American people. And let's be honest. The reason why Adam Schiff got away with lying to Americans for 3 years in a row is because no one asked him a question. It's the same thing that's happening with Marc Molinaro now. It's because, yeah, the memes. But quite honestly, the reason why Adam Schiff is getting censured, the reason why he was able to lie to American people is because the news media, major or other alternative, did not ask him questions, did not hold him accountable. His voters in his district, his constituents, did not hold him accountable. So he lied, and he kept on lying, and he kept on lying, and it kept on causing damage to the United States in its efforts politically and economically. He hurt America because no one would say, you need to answer to this. You have to provide answers. Whether we like them or not, you have to provide proof. And when we didn't do that, that's how we got Adam Schiff. And Mark, I'm representing Molinaro, trying to stop you from going down that road. And as to your opponent, Josh Riley, who I also happen to know for 8 years now, Josh, that's why you're losing. Because you don't answer questions. It's just that simple. Josh, you have been just like Adam Schiff. Not answering questions, dodging the public. You're doing what Joe Biden does. You're doing what Kamala Harris does. You're doing what Adam Schiff does. That's why you lost. Marc, you may lose too. It's a choice. It's just a choice. And the American public deserve people who will answer, who make the right choice, who provide answers. Yeah, well, I've got, and Dal asked to your statement about, well, they could make memes about what I say. There's 1,700 videos. There's, I don't know, 2,000 hours of me speaking. If they want to make a meme, it's not very hard. But they're afraid of me. Plot has a couple of memes on me. As if it matters. Like anyone cares what Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow says. But they've got a couple of memes of me out there. They keep it inside their circles, but I know they exist. Don't care. So today, let's see, we've talked about Representative Sheila Jackson Lee trying to punish Americans for daring to exercise their Second Amendment rights because, and again, no one's asking her any questions, to ask her to prove and explain herself. How does adding a shoulder support change the rate of fire of a firearm? How does it change the caliber of the bullets that firearm fires? They don't, but somehow she thinks they do. Somehow putting on a shoulder plate suddenly changes a firearm and turns it into a machine gun. She's been watching too many movies in Hollywood, quite honestly. But we've talked about that. We've talked about the U.S. economy. We've talked about, I know the overlords are pissed at me. We've talked about the U.S. economy. We've been talking about what's happening with China. We've been talking about what's happening with Taiwan, what's happening in the Ukraine, in Iran, and the Iran nuclear deal, and the deception that's happening from the U.S. State Department, telling the American people that they won't talk to Iran, and yet they are. They told us that the Iran nuclear deal is dead, even though they're still having the conversations. And they're playing games kind of like Marc Molinaro, as we showed you earlier, where there's, where is it? I want to show it again. Where did I have that? I have way too many windows open. Way too many conversations. Where it's some, remember he was saying, so, I know where it is. As we saw that Secretary Blinken was stating that it's some, there it is, the State Department, as reported by the Voice of America overseas, some reports of the conversations with Iran are incorrect. Some of the statements about the Iran nuclear deal are incorrect. Deal is on. They're just playing games with us. Yeah, the plot memes are not funny. What is that square thing that you just put up there, that emoji you got up there, Dal? I've never seen it before. What is that, supposed to be fog? I don't know. So, we've covered a lot of ground today, talking about a lot of issues, and I appreciate that everyone's been able to watch and be involved with us on this. Let me ask, is there anything that I haven't talked about that's important? I mean, do we really need to talk about Trump's indictment more? Because Trump got indicted. Trump says he's innocent. Republicans say he's not. Democrats are saying that he's not, that he's guilty, he's a bad guy, blah, blah, blah. But are you surprised? I mean, that's still going on. That's going to be the conversation for months upon months upon months. That's not new. But that's supposed to be all you're paying attention to. That's supposed to be all the news media. Forget everything else that we've been able to show you today. Forget everything else we do videos on. Everything is Trump. That's hurting America. And it's hurting the world. But let me take a moment while we have a brief intermission here to, nope, there we go. Let me play this for everybody. This is No Soundbites Allowed, and I am your host, Michael Voss, Dragon of the Southern Tier. I'm happy to be here with you today. Eric Holder, the Attorney General of the United States, admitted he has not read the Arizona immigration law. Let's think about that for a moment. I know it is a difficult task to stand up in front of our peers and say to Congress and say that Congress has failed to listen to voters.
You here at CPAC said yes to President Donald Trump in 2016, and I know you're going to say yes to Trump.
She was very aware that she had the flag in her hands and that the flag was dragging on the ground. That is a intentional action. She knows what she is doing. She then drops the flag. Understand the logic, and we see this in social media on a regular basis, and it's something that Newsweek decided not to tell you about.
Held the AR-15 in my hand. I wish I had it. It is as heavy as 10 boxes that you might be moving. And the bullet that is utilized, a 50 caliber, these kinds of bullets, need to be licensed and do not need to be on the street.
That's right. Representative Sheila Jackson Lee, a representative in Congress who is writing laws to deny American citizens their rights, has no idea what she's talking about. And they are against the vaccine mandate.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, you support that?
We shouldn't have any problem in meeting that error rate, because last time I checked, there were not a lot of planes crashing into each other at airports, right? You can meet a very, very stringent accuracy rate when it's important, when it matters, like in federal elections.
No one wants to point out the quote from Joe Biden where he is admitting that he is willing to lie to the American people. All right, everybody. Thank you for that. And let me also mention, Dal had mentioned, some people are saying on this Father's Day, and I want to say to everyone who still has their father alive, please reach out to your father and say thank you. Something really simple. Just say thank you, because they help to let you be here and alive. Some fathers are better than others. That's a different question, but at least they helped you to become into the world, and be thankful for that. And if you can be thankful for more, then share that with them too, because they're not always going to be there. My father is no longer here. He died, God, almost 2 decades ago. Actually, more than. And so I'll never be able to have conversations with him again. It's a sad thing to remember on Father's Day. So please keep your fathers in your mind and say hello to them and say thank you. Just like Mother's Day. You said hello to your mom. You said thank you, Mom. Do the same thing for your dads. I know, Hollywood hates them. Disney hates your dads. But guess what? Your dads, they're part of your life. They're part of your family. Just say thank you. And I heard and Dal mentioned that some people are trying to say that Obama's kids are great, that Obama's a great dad. He's better than Donald Trump because Obama's kids have never had a problem. That's a lie. Let me see if I can find it for you real quick. Because remember, Obama's kids have had problems. There it goes. Malia Obama found herself in hot water in 2017. Let's see. Where is it? Yeah, the Obama. Malia is the one that's been the big troublemaker for him. She had some problems before 2017. The news media wasn't big on reporting the issues. I believe it was, and it's not being reported. Here she goes. She rebelled. It was, I think, when she went to Harvard, didn't she get caught in a nightclub underage drinking? But it is true that you could take all of the issues that these kids have had, put them all together, and it's still all of Trump's kids. You could take all of the issues of Trump's kids, put them together. Obama's kids have had more. Yes, don't forget granddads, grandpas, dads, uncles, all important. Wonderful to say thank you to all of them. And Juneteenth, just keep your head down. If you're in Chicago, Detroit, Baltimore, St. Louis, L.A., New York, all the hotbeds, all the places where there's gun control. If you're in one of the states where Democrats have all of their gun control laws in place, keep your head down on June 13th. The fact is, just like every June 13th, or Juneteenth, I should say, Juneteenth, it's just a violent day. That's just a fact. And it's not a new thing. It's not because guns are a new thing. Don't believe me? Look back in history. Juneteenth is just like 4th of July. Lots of murders, especially in Chicago, especially in Detroit. Just is the reality. Well, I'm glad to hear that, Miss Kay. I'm glad that you had a great relationship with your dad, and you still do. That is important, and I'm happy to hear that. With that all said, we've been on for about 3.5 hours. It's a little shorter than our usual show. No problem. But I want to take the opportunity to thank you all for being my audience. I want to take the moment to thank you for the support. Don't forget about the Patreon. I'm just typing out the messages here for everyone. Don't forget about our new Patreon account that we have. Please do check it out. $1.50. 30 hours of content a month. $1.50. It's better than Disney Plus. Better than anything else. You spent more time with me than people are spending going to watch Indiana Jones. Guess what? Indiana Jones will cost you $25 for a miserable movie. You watched me for free. So there's your choice. Thank you for being a wonderful audience, because I appreciate each and every one of you. And thank you to all the dads that are out there. Dow says, my audience keeps getting bigger. I'm convinced that my family that has passed on gather around and bring God over and say, look what that Warren is doing. A little bit, I'm sure. A little bit of all that. I'm sure they're watching us and having some fun sometimes. Telling us, you know what, it's not as hard as you want to make it be. Sometimes it's easy. But folks, I want you to take the rest of the Father's Day, have the opportunity to enjoy it with your family. I will be, no, I know. I get it. I get that, Dal. I'm going to be in New York, so you'll see me over there, and I should be back in the Southern Tier after that. And I'll let you know about more developing news as it comes over the next couple of days. But until then, I thank you. I thank you for your support. I thank you for being part of my audience. And I want you to have a great Sunday and enjoy yourselves. Thank you.